They're on Zoom. That's all. It'll stop right there though, because that's what it says every time. So this meeting is being recorded for, you can look back at it later and see yourself. We had a work session before about landscaping and pickleball courts. A work session for those of you that weren't here. It's just where we discuss concepts. We don't vote in a work session. It is a public meeting that we post as well too. But a lot of times those concepts that come from the work sessions later come to a council meeting to be voted on. So so it's nice to have that work session to talk things out first and use council meeting for a situation where you're voting on things. And not everything we do in council we're voting on, but quite a few things are. So welcome. We want to start today by making sure that we can hold our meeting by seeing that we have a quorum here. So let's start with the end with Councilwoman Meekum.
Meekum present.
Summer Hayes present.
Yance present.
Hurst present.
So we have 4 of our 5 council members present. So that means that we can proceed because we have a quorum present. We want to start with the legislative prayer or thought by Councilman Summer Hayes.
I don't have any deep thoughts, but I don't think it's a coincidence tonight that part of our council agenda includes a presentation on the 9/11 Memorial Project. I had the opportunity to be at both the memorial and the museum 2 weeks ago today, and just how impactful that is, and look forward to that presentation tonight. I won't say anything other than it was humbling. I've been there now twice, the memorial 3 times, the museum twice, and it never ceases to be heart-wrenching and take great pride in those who provide public safety and many heroes and the brave acts that were done that day on behalf of so many people that were able to escape despite all the loss of life. So I'll offer a prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to meet this night as a city council and residents of Centerville City. We're grateful for the ability that we have to meet peaceably, to discuss issues that are facing us as a city. We pray for thy blessings and thy watch care tonight and always as we do our very best to make good and wise decisions. And pray for thy blessings tonight and say this in the name of thy son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you'd all rise with me, repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we're to the open session part of our meeting, and just for the concept of, so you understand the order that we're going in, this open session is an opportunity for people to take a couple of minutes and talk about whatever's on their mind. When I open it up, just to state your name and where you're from for the record. We are, as part of our meeting though, we are going to have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2023 final budget. So if your comments are along that, you don't have to get up on the open session. That will be in the public hearing. We also will have a public hearing on the Justice Court judge compensation and a public hearing on a fiscal year 22 budget amendment. And I think that's all the public hearings that I see. So those 3 items, we will be opening it up for you to discuss further. So those are things that in this open session, you don't necessarily need to address those because you'll have that opportunity in those public hearings. But anything else that might be on your mind, the open session is now open. Like I say, just try and keep your comments to a couple minutes and state who you are and where you're from.
My name is Bob Gray. I'm from Centerville, and I've been here for 3 years. I wasn't able to make any of the other sessions because I was on vacation for my 10th anniversary. So I really feel that we need to stage the property tax increase, a 35% increase during a period of unique inflation. And then when that inflation inevitably leads to a recession, we'll have spiked that property tax at 35% during the height of inflation. Maybe consider a more staged approach, maybe 10% one year, 10% the next year, 15% the next year. But all at once could be a potential financial burden for some people in Centerville, considering that our water is also increasing as well. I'm uniquely successfully financial that I can stomach that with no issue, but just consider a 35% increase for other residents in addition to the water increase will be a little bit of a financial burden for everyone. I won't be able to make sure those other comments or other times when it'll be open to comments. So I'm speaking now. And then the other concern I have is the Rockwood Trail. We might want to check to see that there was a recreational easement established when the Rockwood Trail was established, because the kiosk itself is on Centerville city property, but the actual trails on private property. So we might want to look into whether or not a recreational easement was ever formally established when the Rockwood Trail was created, because if it isn't, with all the construction that's going on the hillside, I would hate to see the Rockwood Trail fenced off. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Others?
I just have a question concerning maybe the property tax increase. Is it earmarked for certain things? I don't know. And the other question I would have is there's a lot of high density housing going up. What kind of impact fees are we charging the builders? I don't know that either. Just a couple of questions.
Will you state your name and where you're from for the record?
I'm sorry, what?
Your name and where you're from
Oh,
for the
I'm
record?
sorry. Kathy Reese. I've lived in Centerville for 42 years.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate it. The two things you talked about is we will be discussing that further on the budget of where the money is going to in the public hearing matter. And yes, there's impact fees that you collect off a building that goes to parks and things like that. So
My question was what is that? You know, what is the impact?
anybody want to address that quick for just for information?
We'll address it in when it present on the budget.
Okay, so that'll be with budget too. All right, further items for the open session?
Hi, my name is Jody Jacobson. I'm in Centerville over by Community Park. I saw a petition going around for the pickleball courts, and I noticed that there were about 300 signatures when I first saw it. And my understanding was that it needed 500 signatures. And I got to thinking, suicide rates, drug abuse, breakdown of the families, divorce rates, all of the things that are happening in our world today, in our society. And it feels like Centerville has been given a golden opportunity to help our residents face all these hard times. And I put together a little poll on Facebook just to get out of curiosity to see if there was anyone interested in different options. There were 245 votes. About 10 different options that were presented. People added their options. And so today, there was also a lot of support for the idea of a dog park. I was supposed to make sure I threw that in. So for today, I would like to ask the council and members of the board to expand beyond the idea of just having pickleball and maybe including an area, making it an area that's all age inclusive and can help build the families together. I was at the meeting a few minutes ago, the Porter Walton, it would be an example. If you had the basketball courts, the pickleball courts, and expanded on the children's playground, so mom and dad could be playing pickleball, but see their kids watching, and the teens could have a safe place. It's all inclusive, and it could be a safe haven for everyone. So that is my plug. Pickleball is a lot of fun. I think we have this great opportunity that we could really do some good for the residents in Centerville. Thank you for hearing me.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate the comments. Good thought. Others?
Kyle Green, 433 East, 200 North in Centerville. Lived here my entire life, bought a home here, was one of the lucky few that got in before everything went crazy. I'd like to just touch on a couple quick points. One, I'm excited to hear that the police department's made some strides in the deer program, which is a big win for us. Also, I was not able to attend the work session, so I don't know exactly what was covered about pickleball courts. In my opinion, and in talking to various neighbors, I should say, strenuously object to putting pickleball courts here at Smith Park. There's one of the few parks in Centerville that doesn't have some sort of big recreational thing that creates more traffic. You look at the Centerville Park, we have baseball diamonds, soccer fields. It's a natural place to include pickleball to create a sports complex that's designed for handling crowds, holding tournaments, and those kinds of things. I think it would be a short-sighted move to put it this close to an elementary school, especially one that already struggles for parking, one that uses portables for school classrooms. A pickleball coming off of a paddle varies in noise level between 70 and 80 decibels. I can only imagine all day sitting in my classroom listening to pop, 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 pop. And whereas I have a kid coming up that's going to be going to Centerville Elementary, I don't really want that there. And I also don't want the additional traffic and cars and parking and things that already are a struggle with Centerville Elementary School and around Centerville Elementary School. I think that Smith Park is also uniquely suited currently as a great park for city events. Things like movies in the park, things like concerts in the park, and a venue where people can come and rent the pavilion, can use it for family reunions and other things like that. And I feel like that space, that quieter atmosphere would be negatively impacted in a great way by pickleball courts. I realize there are ways to help dampen the sound, but having been around it for a long time, being a big fan and an avid player, I love pickleball as much as the next person. I just don't think it's the right venue at Smith Park. And I'll hold the rest of my comments about the taxes for later. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Others on the open session?
I'm Taylor Cutler, 1872 North Main Street in Utah. And I really like tennis and I really like pickleball. And I just want to see more pickleball courts around here in Centerville. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate that. It's good to hear from the youth group on this stuff because they're so active.
Stephanie Ivy. I have the privilege of listening to the pickleball courts at Island View Park every day. And I'll tell you this, I don't wish it on anybody, not even my worst enemy. It is loud, it is obnoxious, and it never goes away. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday, it doesn't matter if you're down with COVID, it doesn't matter if your kid is miserable and has finally fallen asleep, that pickleball will be going if it is a decent, if it is between 6 a.m. and sometimes 11 p.m. And it's not fun. So I'd recommend you not put it here where it can, like Kyle said, be a detriment to the uses of Smith Park as well as to the close neighbors. And I would recommend that be considered at Porter Walton Park as well. I know that the houses at Community Park are a little farther away, and that may help. I don't know what increased distance does to that sound, but I know that between my house and the pickleball courts, even though we're not on the same plane, it's significant.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Others on open session? Anybody online for open session? What you see,
There's a lot of people online, so. I
but
don't know
nobody's
if they're
raised their
here.
hands?
Nobody's raised their
Okay.
hands for open session, so they may be here for public hearing.
And
Oh.
Mr. Mayor, just so you're aware, we're still struggling with YouTube.
Our YouTube stream is not working.
So we had performance audio here and it was working and YouTube is no longer working. So we are still recording it via Zoom so we can post it later for the public to review, but public is not seeing it live on YouTube at this time.
So those people, there are some people that probably on Zoom that will make comments later possibly, so.
Do we need to remind people verbally that they can access it on Zoom? I mean, it's on there, but
Well, it's not on there right now. Tomorrow, the Zoom recording will be posted on YouTube.
But the address to get it zoomed
So
on
the agenda at the top does give you
For
a
the
Zoom
public.
link for the public.
Because I printed this out from the public.
all I'm saying is just comment, remind people that it is there. They
Yeah.
can get to it.
And if anybody on Zoom currently would like to make a comment during open session, now's your time, or else public hearings are coming.
Thank
If they raise their hand, then I may let them letter. So thank you, everyone, for your comments on open session. We're excited for the first presentation. This is Davis Remembers, the 9/11 Memorial Project. This is a memorial exhibit done by the Major Brent Taylor Foundation. And we are thrilled to have representatives to talk about that tonight. So just introduce yourself and let us know what's going on here. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. My name is Johnny Ferry. I'm here with the Major Brent Taylor Foundation as the co-chair of this project. The other chair is Jenny Taylor, and she's sorry she couldn't be here tonight. She had other obligations. But Jenny is the widow of Major Brent Taylor, the mayor of North Ogden, if those of you have reference to her organization and what they represent. I'll start off. I appreciate Councilmember Summerhays making the comment about the 9/11 events. And I'll just ask, Taylor, do you remember where you were on 9/11? So that's why I'm here, right there for that guy. So you can see up on the screen, this is the Davis Remembers, and you can see we highlight here, I remember. And what I want to take you through is what this event is, and feel free to ask any questions along the way. Myself, I'm actually an executive at Honeyville. We're a food manufacturing company. In fact, if any of you ate Kodiak pancakes this morning, we appreciate your support. So that's what I do for a living. Jenny Taylor is a PTA member with my wife, and that's how I got involved. Jenny and I met through my wife. And a year ago, she approached me about participating in something to do to make, to memorialize the promise that we made that we'd always remember what happened, the events of 9/11. And we met, so I'm from Weaver County. I live in Pleasant View. I was born and raised down in Corinne, out west of Brigham City, but I'm a Utah. And this is a free event to the public. So let me take you through what exactly it is, if you want to click forward. Background, everyone, Mayor, I maybe ask you, do you remember where you were on 9/11?
Very well.
Where were you?
I'm ashamed to admit it, but I was on the Valley View Golf Course with a client. But we were into our second hole and we got the news while we were playing. We stopped playing, and went into the clubhouse and just watched what was happening.
I think if anyone who can remember and participate and remember seeing that, you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing.
Yeah.
On that event, there was nearly 3,000 fatalities, and from that, and then the subsequent attack on both the towers and on the Pentagon, and the events of that day. So our goal is to honor the those lost and affected by the 9/11 attacks, the past, present, police, fire, military, medical, and first responders. So the Davis County community pledges a week of service is basically what we're doing. And as part of that, we're doing an event that's being held at the Legacy Center. This is being donated through the Davis County Commission. And they've given us the Legacy Center to hold this event. So it's an indoor memorial walkthrough display. Councilmember Summerhays, you went through the memorial. I've been through the memorial myself, and that's the reason. Actually, I'm here doing this because it was such an impactful thing to me. Now, not everybody gets that opportunity, and not everyone will get that opportunity to go see it. So I reached out directly to the 9/11 Memorial, and they have provided materials and things that we're doing to showcase and to remember exactly what Taylor needs to know, which is for you to walk through with your family members and have them point out who participated in what was going on and what they participated in. So we have an indoor memorial walkthrough. We also have an outdoor community gathering center with walker booths for police, fire, military to interact with the community. And then we have a touch truck in the parking lot. Let's click on the next one. I'll show you what it's all about. This is at the Legacy Center. You can see it here in the actual large building. You can click on the next slide. This is where we will hold the event. If you can, let's click on the next one. Picture a walkthrough. This is a 100-foot by 200-foot with 400 boards that have, we don't have crushed vehicles. We don't have rubble from the events. But what we do have is we have pictures and we have videos and we have memories. And so by being able to display those pictures, videos, and memories, we can take people who won't get out to the memorial here locally and be able to walk through this event. We want to take you back to how life was prior to 9/11. So we highlight Davis County, and I'm going to ask you for two things tonight. The first one is I need 4 pictures. 4 pictures that showcase Centerville, what you're all about. And then maybe a short paragraph that talks about your city, the history, or something that highlights who you are. We expect to have at least 50,000 people attend this event. We are smaller in Weber County, but we had nearly 30,000 attend the Weber County event. And it was a walkthrough at the fairgrounds. You're bigger, you have more people. We expect to have that many. We didn't, it was new then. This is more known. We're well ahead of where we were last year as far as marketing. So as you walk through the events, you'll go through Davis County and what was going on prior to 9/11. Then you walk through Utah, what was going on, then pop culture and the world. And as you walk into the world side of it, it's actually, everything's printed on these 4-foot by 8-foot boards. But you walk into New York City, you walk under the bridge, and then you see the 2 towers, and you see there's 20 TV screens as well, so you can watch videos. There's 4 documentary rooms where you can sit and watch in more detail the events that were happening. And that's the map of it up on the screen. Let's click to the next slide. The fun, as you walk through, then as you come out of New York, you go into the events of 9/11, and then finally you come into the response. And the more important thing is the call to action. Because what we want to highlight is how everyone felt on 9/12, wanting to serve in the community, wanted to be better, go hug your neighbor, that kind of emotion. We want to capture that. So as you walk out of this memorial, you walk right into the community resource place, which is basically 60 booths that are dedicated to people like the Red Cross, the Boys and the Girl Scouts, service members within the Davis community, and in organizations that will that have a booth space so you can walk up to it and interact. We have police, fire, medical, and military people on site to be able to interact with them, to go up and give them a hug and thank them for their service and what they do. Let's click on the next slide. This gets you to the video so you can get a better concept of what this is about. So no sound here, but this is the community side where we have those 60 booths that are set up. You can see these are actually great middle school kids who help to set it all up. We expect to have about 400 volunteers needed for the setup, and we get them. They come right out and help us out. So we'll have flags everywhere. That's Jenny Taylor is all about flags. These are the 4-foot by 8-foot boards that are being built by Davis Technical College, and then we'll assemble them on site. We'll assemble it over 2 days in preparation. We'll do this on Monday and Tuesday. I'll show you the dates in just a second, but you can see what we're building here. Those are the picture boards that I was talking about, and those display the events of 9/11, the prior to 9/11, and then this is the area where the cities are highlighted. So again, this was last year in Weber County. We'll do the same for Davis County and the cities. So you get a chance to highlight your city and what it all means. This is free to the public again. So here we have people now starting to come through the event. just most people took anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, just because to capture it all and to get everything in. It's dark lit. You can see it's professionally done as far as the spotlights and highlights. The videos and everything is all professionally done. And it just brings out that raw emotion that you felt from 9/11. Here's the subway tunnel that you will walk through before you enter into the events of 9/11. And you'll see the pictures and the images that were captured from that day. We brought in, we bus in, we're gonna have 5,000 kids that'll be bussed in through the Davis School District. And they will get a chance to go through to build care packages and then to also write thank you letters to the fire, police, military, and thank them for their service and what they do. We'll have thousands of those letters to be able to give away at the end of the event. This was really cool for those kids. So for me, I have 4 kids, and my youngest kids were, none of them were alive at the event. You can see here, this is the community side, the community booth. We actually have people who were there on 9/11 and actually had pieces of the plane that they'll have on display for you to see. Things that we were provided by the memorial actually will have pictures and videos of that too. Out in the parking lot, we have a touch of truck, so you can go out and interact with the different members of our police, fire, first responders, and military. And that was the key thing that was really neat, is that I could take my kids who weren't alive at 9/11, and I could walk them through and I could point to the pictures and the videos, and then I can introduce them to their local police, fire, medical, and military, thank them for their service. This event, we can go ahead and click on the next. I'll take you through the calendar here. The next, so 9/11 is actually on a Sunday. We won't be open on Sunday, but prior to that, week prior, so those dates leading up to it, Monday, the 5th, all the way until Saturday, the 10th. The actual opening, we changed it from opening night to an opening morning. We'll have an opening breakfast. We invite all council members, mayor, you're welcome to attend, where we'll have a VIP event. Last year, the governor came out to it. This will be a chance for you to walk through and see it before it opens up to the public. And then we'll open up to the public. That'll be held on Wednesday, the 7th, morning, Wednesday, the 7th. We actually didn't do it Tuesday night because you're all at council meetings. So we want to make sure you'd all be there. So Wednesday morning on the 7th. We then open to the schools from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. We'll bus in the kids to walk through this event. And then it's open to the public from 4 to 9 every night during that week. So we invite you and members of the public to feel free to come attend and see what this event is all about. I think that's everything on the presentation. Just want to click through. This is our calendar of events as we're preparing. Oh, the second thing I'm asking for, volunteers. There will be a link that we will send out. Every city, we're going around to every city and doing the same presentation. There'll be a link for you to be able to volunteer. There are 2-hour windows, block windows. Basically, you would come to the event and you would direct people of where to go. We will have no problem filling up those volunteers. So the sooner you can get on there and volunteer, the more likely you're going to get a spot to help us out. A great event, a great opportunity for us all to serve. Other cities have, we're funding this. It's all free to the public. I don't get paid for this, and neither does Jen. No one's getting paid for doing it. But the materials do cost money, and we have sponsorships that we have gone to different businesses to get donations for. The event itself is budgeted about $100,000 to get it done. We're halfway there on our funding just over the past 2 weeks. If you are aware or know of any businesses that like to be involved or would like to be a sponsor of the event, then we encourage that. Some cities have offered to be a sponsor of the event as well. So if you'd like to participate in that, there's information we can provide. So I just need a contact person. I think we've already made that contact person that we can get the pictures from, and that we can provide marketing materials. Last thing, any events, if you could help us get the word out, forward on the social media, the advertising that we have. This is going to be an amazing community event, and we invite all members of the public to attend too. It'll be something neat to do. Bring your kids out, let them see it. Any questions that you have for me?
So Johnny, I brought this up with the council 2-3 months back when we started talking about this. Do we have a person? If not, I'm going to ask Jennifer to get him pictured over there, but unless we have somebody else to get him over there. And that's the other thing I was going to ask, what do you need? And you've told us.
Yep.
You've told us volunteers and business sponsorships. This is a really worthwhile thing to go to. I did not go to one Weber. I did not know about it, but like Councilman Summerhays and Johnny, I've seen that in New York, and it causes you to step back and be grateful for what you have and all that was done for you. And this will do this right within our own community. So I really participate people to get involved as volunteers
Thank you.
and to attend it for sure. Council, other questions?
All right.
So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Johnny. And I got his email, anybody that would like it as well too. So we appreciate that. Okay. Let's move on now to the business items on the agenda. This first item is a public hearing discussion. This is the fiscal year 2023 final budget. 2 weeks ago, council discussed this and it was tabled till today. It looks like Nate's getting ready to come up, maybe give us some changes over the last couple of weeks. Is that what you're looking to do, Nate? Or just an overview again? You have it in mind. You're prepared, it looks like. So
Mayor, will you plug in that USB in front?
yes, I will plug that in for you. Nate, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. So tonight, as you said, this was tabled from last week. We haven't had any changes to the budget since our last meeting. However, we've got a couple of changes to this agenda item. So just remember, we are asking you to approve the fiscal year 23 tentative operational budget. And then the things that we've added is we need to set the proposed tax levy, as well as schedule the public hearing for the final budget and the truth and taxation hearing. So those are the two items that have been added tonight. So as I mentioned, we haven't had any changes to the budget. However, we did get our property tax, the certified tax rate from the county auditor. And as expected, it has dropped fairly dramatically. So the auditor's certified tax rate is 0.000943, which would generate a little over $1.7 million in revenue. And this does include the new growth from the last year, which is 25,145. Again, we're proposing, we left our budgeted property tax revenue the same. So what that does is it drops our increase down to about a 33% increase instead of the 35 that we were initially estimating. I have prepared a little presentation on truth and taxation. It can get fairly complicated. It's a little difficult to understand. So I'd like to just take a moment to try to give a little education on truth and taxation and how property tax work in Utah. While I'm trying to connect, I'll just note that this proposed tax increase would bring an additional $588,564 to the city. Now, it was interesting to note that of this increase, we haven't earmarked it for anything specific. It's general fund money. And so it comes in as general fund revenue and then covers all of our general fund expenses, which include our public safety, our streets, all of our capital, such as our buildings, it includes our parks, all the administrative services. And so we don't have this increase earmarked for one specific purpose, but rather to fund the general fund as a whole. But it was interesting to note that of this increase, about 79% of it is going towards police. When you add in the fire, it adds about another 12%. So 91% of this property tax increase is going to fund our public safety, which was just, again, just something interesting to note here. It didn't connect.
Nate, while you're pulling that up, what's the new mill rate again?
The certified tax rate from the auditor?
Yeah.
.000943. Then our proposed rate with, again, the 33% increase would be .001254.
And what were we last year?
0.001197.
Nate, that's the graph you showed me that you got from the state, isn't it a week or so ago? And I think that information's in the packet here,
Yeah, I think it is.
showing those rates. It's going back many years. Like you got to work that time.
Let's hope I stay here. Sorry, I need to go.
Oh, yeah, you did.
This worked so good when Jennifer and I tested it out today. Just
Everything
again.
works when you test it.
We tested it out just so we wouldn't go through this. And now we're going through it. Oh. All right. So again, as I mentioned, there's a proposed 33% property tax increase. The Davis County assessor put out a really nice video on explaining this. It's kind of dry, but it's very informational. So I wanted to start out just by playing this video, and we'll touch on some of the items that, and we'll cover some of the items that they do.
Line of question, what is to do with taxation?
Utah law requires that taxing entities operate under the same budget as they do.
What exactly is a taxing entity?
A taxing entity is any government that collects taxes. Some examples are the county, the city, the library, fire, water, or sewer districts, etc. Later on in the video, you'll see taxing entities at work.
So that taxing entities can never get more money?
There is a way taxing entities can get more money. They have to hold a publicized truth and taxation hearing. At the hearing, they will explain the reason for their budget increase and take public comments. They will then vote on the proposed increase. To find out if there is a proposed tax increase that will affect you, look at the notice evaluation that is mailed out in July. There are two places you can tell that there is a proposed increase. First, right here, it will show you the dollar increase and the percent increase. And second, it will show you on the right when and where a truth and taxation hearing will be held.
If values increase, do the entities get more money?
As you just learned, if the taxing entity wants more money, they have to hold a truth and taxation hearing. If the taxing entity isn't asking for more money and the property values are increasing, the tax rate would have to decrease so they receive the same amount of money as they did last year. In this example, the property value increased from $361,000 to $376,000. And as you can see, every single taxing entity had a decrease in their tax rates.
Wait, if my rate went down, why did my taxes go up?
Sometimes tax shifts are created. There are a few examples of a tax shift. The first shift is a decrease in tax shift. An example would be the new shopping center gets built in your tax district. This would broaden the tax base. Since that shopping center is now paying part of the tax, the surrounding homes need to pay a little less. The second example is of an increasing tax shift. This can happen for several reasons. Some reasons are that your house increased more than the average increase, or you could have added more value to your home by finishing a basement, for example, or the value of the commercial values decreased more than the Going back to our prior example, you can see that even though the tax rate decreased, some of the areas had an increase in the actual amount of taxes collected. For example, if the school district had an actual dollar increase, but the state charter school levy had a decrease. The state basic school levy had an increase. Davis County had an increase, but Layton City had a decrease.
So what would happen in a decrease in market?
Because the taxing entities are entitled the same budget as last year, if the property values are decreasing, the rates would have to increase.
Where can I go if I have more questions about this?
I'm Lisa Merritt, the Chief Deputy Assessor for Davis County. If you have any further questions about tax rates, you can contact the Procurator's Office. Their number is 801-451-3324. If you have any further questions about property values, you can contact the Assessor's Office. Our phone number is 801-451-3250. And special thanks to Austin Crusade who helped with the voiceover for this video.
All right, so again, I'll kind of touch on some of that same stuff, but really that's, that video is on YouTube under the Davis County Assessors YouTube channel. And they have a couple other videos regarding assessments and more property tax stuff. So I encourage you to go look there. But again, as we talk about an increase, it's important to note that what we're talking about tonight is only the Centerville portion of your tax bill. You know, we have all these other entities such as the school district and the other districts in the county, but the only thing that the city can control is the city portion, and that makes up only 10% of your total property tax bill. All right. So again, as the video mentioned, here in Utah, the city gets the same amount of dollars as the prior year. So the rate fluctuates from year to year. Again, we get the same dollar amount. The only time it can change is if the city experiences new growth, which I mentioned earlier was about the 45,000. The other reason is if council enacts the truth in taxation process or property tax rate increase. So there's the only two ways that the city can get more money. We don't get more money when home values go up. I'll explain that in a second. Your basic property tax equation, figure out how much you're going to pay, is you take the tax rate and then times it by your taxable value. I got a question today asking if some of our commercial areas on Parish Lane, if this increase will impact them. And the answer is yes, the tax rate is the same for every property in Centerville. The only difference is the taxable value, and that can fluctuate from property to property. All right, so again, we have a market value. This is where Davis County comes in, and every year they perform an assessment on your property and assign it a market value. It's interesting to note this is not the market value that you could that you could sell your house for necessarily. This is the market value that the county assigns. Again, this is the county. So if you feel like the county assigned your house a value that's way above what you think you could sell it for, there's an appeal process, but that's all done through the county. The city doesn't have anything to do with that. In 2021, the average home was $414,000, and here in 2022, the average assessed value was $546,000. So we experienced quite an increase this last year. The next value is our taxable value, and this is the value that your property is taxed at. Primary residence. So if your property is your primary residence, you get a 45% discount, meaning you're only paying taxes on 55% of your market value. The certified tax rate is calculated by the county and then adopted by council. And so the key thing to remember here is that as property values go up, the certified tax rate goes down. So you can see last year in 2021, we already mentioned we had a tax rate of 0.001197, but we experienced a growth in home values, and so our rate dropped to 943. But again, the city's revenue would stay the same unless we enacted a increase to the truth and taxation process. All right, this was an interesting chart that I'll try to explain here. This is our property values dating back from 1997. That's the earliest I could get the information. You'll see here that from 1997, when the rate was 0.001567. So you see from about the late 90s to about the mid 2000s, the rate didn't fluctuate much, which means our property values stayed about the same. You'll remember about the mid 2000s, our housing market skyrocketed, home values jumped, and so you see this decline in property and tax rates, because again, when the home value goes up, the property or the tax rate goes down. You remember what happened in 2008? The housing bubble popped and the property values decreased, so we see an increasing tax rate. Again, you see the homes steadily rise, and then in 2017, Centerville went through the truth and taxation process and had a 40% property tax increase. So that's why you see this jump right here. Okay, since 2017, home values have risen, so our tax rate has decreased. That brings us to 2021, where we had an increase. So that's why you see a tax increase. So that's why you see that increasing line there. And then here for 2022, the blue line shows what our certified tax rate is from the county. And then the red line shows what our proposed rate would do to this chart. So you can see this is interesting because as a percentage of our property, we're paying less now than we were back in 1997. And that's because home values have risen, and the only way that the city receives more money is through a property tax increase. So again, as your home values rise, your tax naturally goes down. Okay, this was a comparison of other cities. These rates here show the county certified tax rate. I don't love the comparison between other cities, but it just for informational purposes to show where Centerville residents sit. The cities with an asterisk are cities that appear to be going through the truth and taxation this year. One thing I didn't correct is Farmington. They initially, I guess, thought they were going to, and it sounds like they've changed their mind. So again, this isn't final, but it gives us an idea of where we sit currently. Just for the sake of information, if Centerville were to pass our proposed tax rate and other cities did nothing, that would put us in 6th place or 6th on the list in the county. However, if looking at the rates that the other cities have proposed, assuming those all pass and Centerville's passes, that would put us in the 9th spot. So not a whole lot of fluctuation if the other cities go through this as well, like it appears they're going to. All right, so then just a couple frequently asked questions that we've already been over. Are property taxes affected by inflation? Again, the answer is no. We do not receive, the city does not receive more money when housing market goes up unless we enact the truth and taxation process. Okay, the other question is, people say they've lived here a long time and they know they're paying more than they did 20, 30 years ago. So how could your taxes have gone up during that time if the city didn't raise them? There's two possible reasons. The first is that another taxing entity, if you remember that chart, all those other districts or the county, if one of those raised their rates through the truth and taxation process, that could have increased your total tax bill. The other option is that your property increased in value at a higher rate than the city as a whole. So when the property value of the city increases, the tax rate decreases, which gives the city the same revenue year to year. However, if your property increases in the value at a higher rate than the tax decrease, you'll see a tax increase. But the city doesn't see an increase because they get the same dollar amount year after year. So if your property inflated at a higher rate than someone else's, you might pay a little bit higher, but that means someone else's that didn't inflate as fast would be paying less than the prior year. And again, the revenue to the city is the same. All right, so this is the biggest question, is how will those taxes affect the average resident? Again, the average resident's market value is $546,000. As I said earlier, as a primary residence, you get a 45% discount, meaning you pay taxes as if your home was valued at $300,300. The average home currently pays $283 in Centerville property taxes. If we go through the 33% increase, the average home would pay $376.58, which is equal to a $93.39 per year, or $7.78 per month increase. And then this is the chart you might have seen at our open house that we'll be sharing with the public to help them, based on your home's value. That gives you an idea of what your home would be looking at. So Brent, did I miss anything? Let's briefly discuss the impact fees, as that was a question, and its role in city operations. Yeah, so impact fees are to provide extra services for the impact of that new neighborhood. So for example, your water impact fee is to help the city get water to those properties, or the park impact fee is to help accommodate for the greater park space needed. So those impact fees, again, don't go towards operations. They can only go towards increasing our services due to the impact that those new neighborhoods would put on our infrastructure. So as an example, if we had to upsize pipe because a new neighborhood is in, then we'd use those funds for the new growth. We can't subsidize or supplant our current operations. So impact fees don't play a huge role in terms of subsidizing our costs, but we have an expected level of service that we'll use parks as an example. We have so many acres of park per capita, and so we need to collect impact fees to maintain that level of service for new growth. And Centerville at this point is not growing as quickly as it once was. So impact fees are actually a challenging source in terms of paying for new projects, because you have to spend the funds within 6 years, and it's hard to build a new water tank if you only collect $100,000, and that's being hopeful. $100,000, you have to spend that in 6 years. And so impact fees are really difficult at our place to improve our infrastructure. So okay. Did I answer that okay? Dave? Everything. I miss anything? So anyway, hopefully that helped understand a little bit about property taxes. Again, our budget hasn't changed since our last public hearing a couple weeks ago. So again, our staff's recommendation is to adopt the tentative operational budget to set the property tax levy at 0.001254, and to schedule the hearing for the final budget and the truth and taxation hearing for August 23rd at 6 p.m. here at Centerville City Hall. Are there any questions I can answer? I just have one more thing to add, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. And that just go back to the beginning of the presentation regarding the rate is now 33%. And in December, council approved a rate increase for the police department to be more competitive. We are having challenges in hiring police officers. Salt Lake City implemented a 40% property tax increase for their officers, which made it very challenging for cities to compete, which created this issue that everybody was now competing against Salt Lake City for the limited police officers. And we had some protests going on at the time where we had police officers exiting providing police services, not wanting to do it. So it creates a supply and demand issue. So we needed to increase our wages to remain competitive, to hire and keep and retain our current officers. We have a great police department, one of the best I've ever worked with. And so the council approved a wage increase in December, 25% starting at the entry level, and which slowly tapered off to 10% at the chief level. Again, chief didn't take a raise at this time, but there was, and compression was created, but there was this increase that was approved mid-year. And so there is some obligation to use this property tax increase to make up for that mid-year wage adjustment. And that's 73, that's what, I'm sorry, 79%, 79% of that 33% is just to make up that already approved increase. And then we have an increase of 7.1% in our fire assessment. So in addition to the property taxes you all pay to South Davis Fire, cities pay a portion of our assessment to South Davis Fire, and that has gone, and right now we're about $1 million, just over $1 million a year. And there's a 7% increase on the South Davis Fire. Again, they're experiencing the same wage pressures that we are. And so that's another 74,000, which again, so the earmark idea, there's not necessarily earmarked in terms of saying this is dedicated, but to maintain our operations for items that we actually have no control over. That's 91% of that 33% increase. Just for some information on it.
So thank you, Brent, and because I was going to bring up those points as well too, but you said it better than I would have. Now, Nate, can they go? We just accounted for where 91% of the increase would go to. Where can they go, the residents, to see the budget? It is out there for them to look at, isn't it? And how long has it been out there?
It is. So we opened it to the public on, I believe it was May 3rd. It was the first city council meeting in May. We held a public hearing, formally presented the budget to the public. We're required by law to leave that open to the public for at least 30 days, which we did. We met on June 7th and had our public hearing, and council voted to table the decision until today. So it's been open to the public since May 3rd. It is available on our website, right up in the, I don't remember where it goes, there's a spot at the top that says budget. I click there and you'll be able to find it on the website. We also have a copy here at City Hall, a paper copy that's open to the public to review.
And as you would imagine, I'm in the private sector doing financial statements, and you get a balance sheet and a profit and loss. Maybe you have divisions, but with governmental accounting, you have different funds. And so when you look at that budget, you'll see a general fund and many other funds. A general fund where most of the money is running through, but give them some idea of the other funds where, what they look at that, where the services that are being provided and what generally accepted accounting for government entity requires.
Yeah. So here in the city, we have a general fund, which covers general governmental services such as police, our fire assessment, all the administrative costs, our parks, our court system is through the general fund. Public works. Our public works administration as well is through the general fund. Separate from that, and so the general fund really supports all of the operations. Now we've created some capital project funds to support our capital assets or our capital infrastructure. So we have a parks fund and our capital projects fund. And our transportation fund. Those are all capital funds to support our capital improvements. Those are tied to the general fund, and that the majority of the revenue comes from the general fund to support those different funds. Then we have our enterprise funds. These are business-like funds, meaning they need to support themselves through business-like activity. So our water fund, our sanitation fund, and our drainage fund, those are all fees that get collected through the utility billing process. They pay fee, that's where the majority of their revenue comes from. And that revenue needs to support those expenses that pay for those, our water infrastructure, our drainage infrastructure.
Thank you. So we have to project in a way for capital projects that we may have coming up. Sometimes we can't estimate they're gonna happen. Like a pipe break in early January on Chase Lane covers 4 blocks. And fortunately, we got a bid of 250,000 to replace that. We just can't leave it. And that was by far the best bid we got. Things like that with those we try and project for, but we always can't, correct?
Right, so, and we reviewed this before, but as part of this budget, we've allocated a certain, can't remember the exact amount, but we gave about an extra 100,000 in water for maintenance so that we can replace some of those parts to prevent another Chase Lane like leak. We've allocated some to our parks to help maintain some of our park structures. So we try to do the maintenance that we can, and we do schedule certain infrastructure improvements so that we can continue to maintain a high quality system and hopefully avoid those leaks like happened on Chase Line. It can be very costly, but some things do, those do happen. And unfortunately, we just need to, it happens.
Thanks. So we wanted to give you a great overview of what's going on. Council might have some more questions for Nate sits down, but we also want to open this public hearing back up. Or is it still open?
It's still open.
Still
But Mr.
open.
Mayor, if I can just add one more item that
Sure.
I think is important for the public to understand, even though we've discussed this in previous meetings, we start this process back in January with department heads submitting their desires and their wants and what they need to be efficient and effective in their role. It's always a tough process because you're generally about $1 million you're trying to find and cut because you're trying to balance a budget. And in this case, the department heads did a great job, and they recognize the need to be conservative in their requests. But I would just want you to keep in mind as a public that there are still some desires and needs that our department heads have identified, such as police has been requesting 2 new officers, which is potentially a $300,000, $400,000 impact to the budget when you purchase equipment and things like that, and the salary increases that were there. So you have streets department in need of 2 new employees because it's expensive to rebuild a road. So we're doing a lot more patching, and we need a lot more employees to be there for that. So we need 2 employees there. So we cut that out of this year's budget. Also a water employee, we're in need of another water employee. We have one of the best water systems that I believe in the state, and it's a complicated system that requires very knowledgeable people to operate it. And that's one of our most critical infrastructure in our city that I think we don't truly take for granted in the cost of upkeep. So there are a number of wants that could increase this property tax up into the 80, 90 percentile just to maintain those. But there's this need to maintain, and I applaud our department heads and our staff for being dedicated and doing more with less. But anyway, the property tax increase is just a lot of it addressing decisions and that are out of control at this point with the public safety. But again, trying to maintain a high level of service for Centerville City, as we know, that's what's expected. So that's all I just wanted to lastly say. Thank you.
Okay. Council, anything before we welcome the public to make comments?
Could we have Nate just explain really quickly the other 9% of the property tax increase? The 91% is for public safety.
Yeah, the other 9 is just to address all the other inflationary costs that have happened.
Fuel for the police cars, the fuel for the public works.
Yeah, fuel has gone up tremendously, and I'm frankly not sure we budgeted enough.
It's also helpful for the public, Nate, maybe to run through the fact that we're, as a collective city, because I don't view this as us versus them. We're all residents. This is all our money, and we're trying to choose how to utilize these funds. But I think it's important that we also understand that we're using collective savings through our various funds. So do you want to go through how we're using, or the amounts of general fund transfers we're using, as well as within our enterprise? We're using fund balance to fund our expenditures, not just through the property tax. So if we want to view this collectively as a proposed property tax increase, increase, as well as we're using fund balance, we're using our savings as well. I'm not misstating that, am I, Nate?
No,
I see about 1.257 out of the general fund that's going to different, that will go to different funds to help us pay for things. And then within our enterprise funds, we're using a significant amount of our drainage fund, sanitation and water funds as well to fund those activities.
right. So as far as supporting the other funds, these are the transfers I believe that you were referring to.
Yep, page 47.
Yes, yes. So as part of this budget, we have proposed transferring the $554,903 to the capital projects fund. Again, that is the fund that supports our capital purchases such as the vehicles, the equipment for streets, police parks, the rest of the general fund. So we're proposing transferring that amount there, and we're proposing transferring the 111,000 to the recreation fund. That all that does is pay for our employee that gets paid out of the recreation fund and all of the taxes and benefits and everything else. Now onto the capital projects fund. So how we've structured this is our general fund will maintain the same fund balance as in previous years, which a couple of years ago, the limit was 25% of general fund revenues. Last year, the state legislature increased it to 35%, meaning our reserves can go up to 35% of our general fund revenues. Last year, at the end of last year, we elected to keep 20% in our general fund and then transfer the remaining amount over to this capital projects fund. Again, it's kind of a savings fund for our capital projects. This year, our expenses out of this fund, out of our capital projects fund, are $788,000. So with the transfer, again, this fund is funded by the general fund. So with the transfer of just shy of $555,000, that left the use of fund balance of $227,000 out of this fund. And again, you can see that was reduced from our initial department request and even the tentative budget. We continue to review it and find areas that we could potentially save. I think we've got it down pretty finite here that so while we're still proposing a property tax increase, we are still using fund balance out of this fund to help support that.
So savings kind of to speak. I mean,
Yeah, so
just trying to put it into layman's
Yeah.
terms.
yeah, it's our reserves. The fund balance is also known as reserves. So we are using some reserves here to cover some of these costs. Did that
Okay.
answer?
Council anymore before we let the public comment?
Just
people here
just to put it in
comment.
perspective, the property tax increase is 500,000
588,000.
and the amount coming out of the fund balance.
75-25. 75 property tax, 25 fund balance. Is that what you're asking, Councilmember?
That's what I was trying to get to.
All right, thank you, Nate. So this is a public hearing matter. The public hearing continues to be open from 2 weeks ago. What that basically meant is we were fielding responses in the meeting 2 weeks ago and over the last couple of weeks, anybody that wanted to send anything in by email and that type of thing, which our recorder Jennifer has been tracking for us. So there's not a need for me to open the public hearing again because it's still open. Jennifer, will you make a comment to those that might want to comment online what they need to do? given that instruction, those that might be joining by Zoom. She is my eyes on this to watch this. And while she's looking at that, anybody that comes up to comment, we are going to take notes of what you're saying and hopefully get back in this meeting with one of our staff or one of us. If there's further questions that haven't been answered with what we've gone through, just to make this process efficient and have you all be heard as well too. So while she's looking that up, I will open the public hearing is open. So people are now welcome to come to the mic to address the issue of the fiscal year 2023 final budget. Say your name and where you're from, if you would.
Hi, my name is Adam Alba. I'm at 759 East, 850 South, and I just want to express my support for this increase, which is hard to stomach and hard to say, but I just want to keep a few things in mind, and I just want the council to know that there are people in the community who are supporting this. As I understand it, this is not for an elaborate, expensive vanity project like a winter sports complex called Ice Town. This is necessary for infrastructure, water and things like that, and the necessary services that make this place great. And as has been mentioned before, this increase is only for the city portion of our property taxes. So it helps to have that perspective. And I'd also like to echo the sentiment that if you're pro law enforcement, if you have a sign in your yard that says back the blue or we support law enforcement, then I think this is a no-brainer. We want the best police officers that we can get in this community. And as was mentioned, our law enforcement officers received the mid-year compensation adjustments in September and December of 2021. And the impact of these changes alone equates to an estimated property tax increase of 22%. I've met with Police Chief Child, and I trust that he's going to do good things with that additional compensation for the officers. We live in a relatively safe, good city with good services, and I want to keep it that way. And if that means we have to increase our property taxes in this manner, then I support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
I'm Matt Pierce. I live at 780 South of Main Street, South Centerville. I am not a lifetime Centerville resident. I've lived in several other cities. I actually think that that's a benefit because I recognize a lot of the great things about Centerville. It's not, I came here from places that are less desirable to live. And while no one likes tax increases, this city's people choose to live here. And I think that says a lot for the city and for its leadership. Of course, as I mentioned, nobody likes tax increases. However, it's tempting to look at it and say, well, the cost of, if we don't raise taxes, then everything will remain the same, but that's not at all how it works. There's a cost of doing nothing. And I think Nate, you did a fantastic job. I learned a lot. I really appreciate that. A 33% increase on 10% of the total property taxes, really a three and change percent increase on property taxes. And I'd like to echo what Adam said as well. Anybody who proclaims their support for the police and public safety through flags and signs and shares on social media, I'd find it ironic at best and hypocritical at worst that they would be in any way opposed to this tax increase, given what it's targeted to pay for. And I think that's all I have to say. Although it feels like since I've stepped up here, I know this is off topic, I feel compelled to say that I'm pro pickleball courts. I can't let that pass without expressing that. So I do support this increase. I think it's very reasonable given the cost of things happening. I know that things are more expensive today than they were 25 years ago. And I know that if we don't take steps to ensure public safety and ensure infrastructure remains maintained, that the cost doesn't go down, it goes up over the long term. And I'd rather pay less for the things that we need than pay for the cost of neglect. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for breaking some of the seriousness as well too.
Yes, I'm not worried about the noise.
Hi, I'm Brita Johnson. I live at 289 Williams Lane in Centerville. I have been a resident for 10 years. I am a transplant from California. Oops, guess what? I love Utah. I'm never gonna leave. I came in 99. It's wonderful here. It's a good quality of life for my family, and my husband has grew up in Bountiful. First off, I want to say thank you, council and mayor that voted to, and those that were on the council before, to increase our officer's salary to keep them here. I had an experience. I was sideswiped going westbound recently by a teenager. It happens. Accidents happen. The officers that came out were wonderful. The girl was visibly upset, shaking, walking her through the process. It was a positive experience for all. I felt safe. I felt that she was safe, and it was a good experience. I want to keep those officers here. I want those interactions I have a 15-year-old who'll be driving soon. If an accident happens, I want him to feel safe. I want the interactions to be positive. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. So thank you for doing that, and for using our reserve to do that. Now, as citizens, I support the increase. I think we've elected some wise individuals here. I'll make a joke, and I told Spencer I was going to joke. I call him a tightwad. He is very precise with money. Our mayor's background, many of you I know are precise individuals, and if there were things to find, we would find it. But the fact of the matter is, we have to, raise the pay. We have to be competitive. We want to keep the services for our city. That's why we live here, for this quality of life. So I'm supportive of it. Thank you for all you do. I love pickleball courts too, so we'll plug that. Thanks.
Thank you, Rita.
I'm Stephanie Ivy. Guess what? I've looked at budgets before, and I apologize for not having looked at this one, but I was busy training to become a better CERT person in case of an emergency. But this is an emergency, folks, and I've sat where you are, and I want you to know something. Government has some primary responsibilities. If you don't have water that you can drink, and if you don't have somebody who can defend you if someone comes to shoot you up, that's government's problem. Pickleball courts are lovely. Nice roads are great, and I like them. But ultimately, there are a few things that government is responsible for, and it's not everything that's in the budget. It's not new furniture for the lobby where nobody sits because court doesn't meet. There are a lot of things that could be cut out of the budget. Now, I understand, I've heard that the median household income in Centerville is about 100,000. Guess what? I teach math because I homeschool my kids and I want them to understand. And median is not the same as average. If you want the average, you add up all the numbers and then you divide by the number of the numbers that you have. If you want the median, you line them all up, small to big, and you tick off one on each side until you get to the center. So if you're saying that the median income is $100,000, that means half of Centerville doesn't make that much. I'm one of those. So if your house is above $100,000, you who are making the decision, know that your income ticked off one of the people on the lower end of the scale to come to the 100,000 average. Now median does not give you what the low and the high are. It's just you're above the middle number or you're below the middle number, and there's no balance act tried to get to the middle. Now, I live in an emergency block of 12 families. Of those 12 families, 6 of them are fully retired. 5 are employed. 1 is a recent widow and unemployed. 3 of those households have severe health problems, and 1 has a disability and can't work. Now, I don't know how much they made before they retired, but I can tell you that a property tax increase along with a water rate increase is going to hurt. And I'm grateful that the state made it possible to put 20 to 35% of savings away for a rainy day. I would love to have 35% of the savings, but I don't, because inflation is affecting my household income. because I have to go to the gas pump and I have to go to the grocery store. Because of that, my reserves are dwindling. There are ways that you could cut. Some of you pay more in property tax than I bring in a month. I have 8.5 people who live in my household on a regular basis. I'm not the lowest income in Centerville. Please don't do this.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Andy Bavelis, live in Centerville, Centerville Farms. Now, you guys know I think the world of you. So don't take anything personal when I'm going to say here, okay? Because I think the world of you. I don't know if the tax hike is the right thing to do right now because of what Stephanie said. We got gas and food and hardware and shortages and everything, and predictions of the fall doesn't look good, okay? And there's other matters here too. I know the farmers across the state, and there's some difficulties here. You're right, there is savings, and thank heavens you got savings and you've been wise to put that together. But when things start twisting, some people are going to be hurting here. Now, I know individuals who go down to the dry pack and they're buying food, not for storage, because that's what they can afford. I know other individuals who are maybe dropping a meal here or there. These things are beginning to happen now. Yeah, I think the police are great, and I think they deserve what they should. But like any household, when it gets tight, you cut something out, then you give it to the police. Like any household, or like any farmer who has lean times, he has to cut the one field out to see what he can produce. The events are telling you as it is. Those are evidences. Now, those are great statistics. In fact, I almost hesitated to come up to say anything. If I didn't see the times right now, you guys, I would not be here. But there are many people right now who are feeling it. And as representatives, that is part of your job, to see what you can cut out and all that. You got rent and mortgages sky high. And I have not heard anybody in government, and the feds are gonna, because of the debt, they're gonna hit us too. But remember, I trust you guys. We all do. We think the world of you. But I don't think this is the time. If you want to do it fall time. You talk about it fall time, when these things really come. Then that will kind of balance out what you can really leverage. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
My name is Karen Romero, and I live at 443 South, 150 West in Centerville. I've lived in Centerville for 15 years and in Davis County most of my life. I'm here to support the proposed property tax increase. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else, but I do like the services that taxes provide. I like being able to flip a lever in my kitchen and get clean, safe water to drink. I like the emergency services that I know that if I have a fire or an accident, I can call 911 and we have adequate equipment and enough staff. I like to have my garbage picked up every week. And these are things that I think we take for granted and we just expect that they will happen. But I can tell you an example when they have not. My oldest daughter lives in New Orleans. She's going to school there. Before Hurricane Ida, there was, we're in the current economy where they had a hard time getting employees, just like everywhere. They lost a lot of employees. They did not have enough people for garbage collection. Hurricane Ida hit, they didn't have power for days. People lost the contents of their refrigerator, freezers, everything. So they had all this food garbage at the curb and no garbage pickup for weeks. And it was just sitting and rotting. And so while While tax increases are not comfortable, nobody wants to pay additional taxes. I think it's important to continue to fund the city for safety, protection, infrastructure, and all kinds of other expenses. And the examples I gave may not be part of the general fund, but it's all, you can't pull from the wrong place to fund other things. We need to continue to fund and maintain the city's infrastructure, as well as fairly compensate police officers, public safety, public works, everything. And so I support the decision for this increase.
Thank you, Karen.
Mr. Mayor, council members and staff, I appreciate the opportunity to take a few minutes. I've voiced opinions often, and I got told if I have an opinion, I need to come and tell the council. I'm here to do that, and I appreciate that.
Will you state your name for the record?
Thank you. Dee Hanson, I live in Centerville, have been here since 1980.
Thank you.
I've raised my family here. I love it here. It's been a great place. I'm conservative. I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income, and I understand the pain that's been mentioned. And yet, in that same vein, you need to understand we can't compensate and let the values of our city go down. We have to support good staff members. We have to keep the infrastructure up. In my career, I observed a lot of cities that kicked the can down the road, if you will. I said, well, not on my watch, because I either want to get reelected or I don't want to be recognized because I was part of a major tax increase. I think we have to recognize that delivering essential services is important. We have to do that. The police officers talked about the police officers, and we have to keep good protection. And I support that as well. Delaying maintaining essential services like infrastructure costs you more money in the long run. You have to make those decisions. It's tough, it's painful, but you need to do it. I think the mayor mentioned the water break that you had costs a lot of money. Your pipes are getting old. And I know you have a hearing coming up on the water system later. But let me throw in a couple of things about that. Centerville City has a good supply system, one of the best. And I've dealt with cities my whole career. What we don't have is a good delivery system. It's getting old. The pipes are rotting, starting to break. They need to be taken care of in a timely manner. They can't be pushed down the road. So I support the tax increase. Not that I love it, because I don't. I don't like tax increases any better than the next person. And I understand the pain that people feel. And I feel that pain as well. But, you know, you got to keep in mind that your fathers or your grandfather, your great-grandfather sacrificed to provide the facilities that we enjoy. We don't have dirt streets that when it rains, you walk ankle deep in mud. We have blacktop roads, we have sidewalks, we have all kinds of structure that somebody else paid for and we've enjoyed. So I would encourage you to consider the tax increase. I'd say it's painful, but I think if we want to maintain the quality of living here in Centerville that we've all enjoyed, we need to face that issue. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dee.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Shaylin Heyman. I'm a resident of Centerville. I think most of you guys know me. I have yet to hear somebody come up here and say, I love taxes, because everybody has said no one does. the decision whether to raise taxes is a difficult one. I understand that. It impacts a lot of people personally, and it's something that should be taken very seriously. And I really appreciate the council's careful consideration and thought of this issue. I think one of the biggest things that I heard coming out of this meeting, I recognize how carefully you've looked at this. 91% of this property tax increase is going to be going towards public safety. 79% towards police, the remaining portion towards the fire department. And so if my math is correct, as an English major, not a math major, so you can check me. But that's $7.08 a month if you take the 500 and whatever $1,000, which means that the remaining 9% is 70 cents a month. I fully support funding our police department. They do a terrific job, and candidly, I would pay more to make sure that we are able to retain and attract capable and qualified police department. And for 70 cents a month, that's a bargain in my view, to help fund the city's critical infrastructure, parks and services, everything else that it provides. So I support the council's proposed property tax increase. And for those who are in attendance, I just really want to give a special shout out to the city staff. I worked with the city staff for 6.5 years on the planning commission, and I know how much time and effort goes into preparing all of the presentation that we've seen here today and in the packets that are prepared for the city council. So I just want to say thank you very much to the city staff. We're really fortunate to have you.
Thank you, Shayla. I appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Julianne Zollinger. I live off of Chase Lane and 300 East. And you guys know me, I have to address the pickleball thing. My understanding is pickleball courts can be built out of the impact fees, and we'll have nothing coming out of the general fund if we do it right. So this tax increase should have nothing to do with whether or not pickleball courts are built, in my opinion. But maybe you could clarify that. I think our employees are wonderful. I really do respect all of you, and mostly the paid employees or the hired, not voted in employees, for really maintaining a wonderful city. I was raised in Centerville, and then I spent over a decade outside of Centerville. And my husband can work from anywhere he wants to in the United States, and we deliberately chose Centerville. And so that should tell you something about how much I love Centerville and how excited I was to raise my family here. So I believe that our employees deserve competitive wages, and I believe that this tax increase is needed. If we don't do it now, we're going to have to raise up more later. And so I think that if I understood correctly, to really cover all of the things that we would want and need in this city, we would need to increase it a lot more than 33%. And so I feel like you guys are being very wise and conservative in how you're choosing to tax the public. And so I appreciate that. I have had the experience of working with the police officers due to location on my home. We had an accident there, and one of the officers that was taking the lead, I guess, in it was a new officer. And he, although there was nothing seriously done, he made a few mistakes that I had to call Chief Childs about and get addressed. This is not to in any way be negative about the police officers. The fact was that it was a new police officer. They hadn't been trained. And I think it is so important to keep our officers that we have trained, that know our community, that know how it's run here in Centerville, because it made a difference to me personally to have one that was new and didn't know. Luckily, we have great police chief that took care of it, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Additionally, I live on Chase Lane and was there for when the pipe burst. And I believe that we need to be proactive and not reactive. To any increase to help with our maintenance of our aging water system would be wonderful. I love Centerville. It's a small community. There's so many reasons I've chosen to stay here, but if we don't continue to increase our funds to match the maintenance costs of our city, then we're gonna start to see it wearing down. And I can already see it in a few areas. I know you're trying to be careful with our money, and I appreciate that, but I also appreciate you raising taxes so that we are not always drawing from our savings when we can instead be proactive and not reactive to the situations happening in our city. I'll just say, thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Hi, Peter McLean from 327 South 600 West. We're in part of Porter Walton areas. One question that I actually wanted to double check on, I wasn't clear from the presentation. If this tax proposal does not go through, what is the consequence of that? Is this funding in support of the increased wages for the police force, or is this for the capital equipment that I saw line items on that budget sheet?
You can answer the question when the public hearings goes on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
we'll make a
I'm writing it
next
down, so
question.
I can address that.
Awesome, great. And then broadly speaking, I agree there's costs for inaction, maintenance costs will accumulate regardless of whether we fund them. I'm in favor of progressive types of taxation in order to accommodate, as was also mentioned, kind of the lower half of that median value, the lower half of that distribution, because I think it is problematic that a lot of our taxes are based on property values that are going to increasingly impact people on like fixed incomes and the lower end of the income spectrum. I don't know if there's anything that as a city we can do about that. That's kind of the way our system, our society, our governmental policy is all set up. But I definitely encourage people to think about opportunities to try to do things a little differently in order to accommodate the needs of the citizens of the city. But yeah, agree. Taxation is important. What is being proposed is seems to be very modest, and I generally support fair compensation for city employees. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
So I'm Dave Turner. I'm on Chase Lane, and I'm on the fence about the tax issue. One thing that would help me is to understand what I can get up in order to reduce budget somewhere else. Within about 3-4 minute walk of my home, there are at least 60 single women who most are on fixed income, and probably within a 5-minute walk from my home, there are 100. And many I know personally. So to help me get off the fence, I'd like to know what I can give up. Other than something that's also can take money from my neighbors who have fixed incomes. My personal income has gone down greatly lately. I'm not concerned about that. I can make do, but it's my neighbors that I'm concerned for. I'm all in favor of keeping our wages and technology with police and fire at top level. All in favor of that. But just to give you an example of what I'd be willing to give up, Mayor, I'd give up tennis courts.
That's good.
And I'm on tennis courts 5 days a week. So take away my tennis courts, take away my pickleball courts, take away something that I could give up so that my neighbors who are on fixed income, who are already giving up much with inflation and other increases. I feel passionately about just help me get off the fence by telling me what I can get up. I'd much rather do that than pull the funds from somebody else's pocket who doesn't help. So trust you guys, love you. By the way, whichever police officer who was about 6 years ago, he pulled me over for speeding. on my bicycle. I love it. He's my best friend.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. There's got to be one or two online, is there? Oh, wait, we'll tell them we'll get to them.
Yeah, sorry. Kyle Green again, 433 East 200 North. I'm about to say something almost blasphemous in my own life here. When you asked, what would you be willing to give up? I'm with him. I would give up pickleball courts. I would give up baseball fields. I would give up the 4th of July celebration. That is something that I never thought I would say. As the guy who announces the parade from City Hall, as the guy that goes to the fireworks, that loves it, who has spent time with the city manager and others and discussing possibilities and ways to improve. There comes a time where necessity trumps nicety, and it just has to. As a small business owner that got wiped out in COVID, we lost 2 companies. We had to sell off everything we had in both of those companies. And what did our government give me in return for that? A whole lot of nothing other than a bill saying that our unemployment tax rate for our business was going to go from 1.1 to 6.9% because of the number of people they allowed to go on unemployment under our name, waiving all the requirements and allowing that to happen. Well, in our business of lawn care, 5.5% to 6%, that's your margins. Our company's done and gone. Luckily for me, I'm a guy that can pivot. I'm young, I'm strong, I can move, I can, as my sister says, make money out of nothing. And even now, as I'm looking at all the increases across the board in the last 5 years, from the South Davis Sewer District going from $30 every 6 months to $114 every 6 months. From Weber Basin Water, which used to be about $100 a year, we're now over $314 a year. I looked at my property tax statement from when I bought my house in 2012 till now, this year, my property taxes have increased by almost $1,200 since 2014. There becomes a point, and I realize it's $7 a month. It's only $7. That's less than a Big Mac. I can go to McDonald's one less time this month. That's fine. But it's also 3.5 hours of somebody's working day that makes $25 an hour. It's if somebody's making $20 an hour, that's 5 hours that they have to work to make up this difference. It becomes really impactful on people that aren't making $50, $60, $80, $100 an hour. When you are small, just barely scraping by, living in the house that your grandma left you, or if you are the grandma, it's hard. And there are things that can be given up. I think Stephanie said it best. First and foremost, fund the necessities. The necessities are police, fire, protection, water. Those things are important. Everything else we can deal with. As a community, if we don't have the 4th of July, great, we'll have a potluck at the end of the block like they used to do in the 1950s. We don't have to have a $20,000 fireworks show. We don't have to have a $3,500 stage. We don't have to have $10,000 worth of furniture for the courtroom. We can find metal folding chairs. They abound plentifully. I can find you a couch from the DI for a lot less than 10 grand. Now I realize I have very many friends right here in front of me, and I love you all. And I know this is a thankless and hard thing to do. And I will fully understand if that has to happen and we have to have a tax increase. I get it. But I also see things like public surplus where I watched a perfectly fine Toyota Tundra of 60,000 miles be surplus. But we also have a brand new Ford F-150. My question is, are there places where we can cut, where we can spend just a little bit more effort, a little more energy in each of our departments to cut 10% of the budget? I don't think that's unheard of. I realize gas is going up. You know, being a guy that doesn't have a lot of money, I can't afford a Tesla. My 2004 Chevy, it loves gasoline.
but I can't afford anything else. So that's what I deal with. And I think that our city, there's not a single person in the city that's going to say, we shouldn't fund our police department, that we shouldn't go for our officers, that we shouldn't put more towards the fire department, that we shouldn't put more to those different things. But I think there are some niceties that could be scrapped for necessities, at least for the next year or two until this thing sorts itself out. Because it will. Things are going to dip, things are going to ebb, there's going to be turmoil, but it'll sort itself out. And at that point, we can start looking back to, do we need 10 pickleball courts? Do we need a new theater? Do we need to increase the soccer field size? Do we need more parking? Do we need a bigger celebration? Do we need moving the park? Do we need those things? At this point in time, I think the community could come together and do most of those things with little to no budget and create the fun that they want to have without having to spend it out of the general fund now. So I would say that those are my thoughts on it. And like I said, I understand if it goes that way, that's fine. It's not going to sink me, but I know that many of my neighbors are going to suffer for that. And especially when you start looking at water increases and other things. So thank you. I appreciate the time and comments.
Thanks, Kyle.
We do have a couple online. We have Love. That's their
Love.
screen name.
Huh?
Okay, Love, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Give us your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Don Love and I live at 865 North, 400 East. I'm also in support of the property tax increase. I understand Miss Ivy's concerns and also Mr. Adams' concerns. But I also feel that I'd rather, like Kyle, give up a Big Mac combo, or if someone's 30% increase came to their Hulu, Netflix, Disney, and or Verizon cell phones, would they also complain and give them up to pay the $7 fee to have 30 days worth of police service? I am a concerned citizen that it only takes one earthquake off the fault lines above 900 North to decimate our city's budget. And I appreciate those who actively are taking part in the CERT classes as well, and being able and available to help and assist in those times of needs. I appreciate your time and efforts on behalf of this, and request your support in this increase for our safety, and also for not using funds from other places to pay for this as well that may need funded for their projects as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
And then Laura said that she wanted to make a comment.
Hi, this is Laura Eliason. I am at 414 East, 900 South in Centerville. And the first thing I want to say is just that I'm thrilled at all the voices being heard tonight. And I know that we can also email the city recorder. I just think that's awesome that we come together as a community to work together to make decisions that make Centerville such a great place to live. Putting all of our heads together, sometimes we see things that from the other point of view that we didn't think about, or just different ways that we might solve problems. So I just am thrilled about all the people who took the time to participate in this meeting tonight. I know that you've poured over the budget. I know some of you personally and know how meticulous you are and how responsible you are. And of those that I know personally, I would hand my own family finances over and trust you with them. That's how much I trust you. I'm grateful for the police, and I used to be a teacher, and teaching is such a hard job, and they get such little pay, and they're always fighting for more pay. And police officer is even a harder job. And our police force is so fabulous that I am in support of paying them a fair wage. And of the particular officers that we have that do such a wonderful job, I am in support of keeping them. The people who know our community, that was a really good point. Let's keep the people who know us and pay them fairly. So I'm in support of that. I really, really appreciate the mindset of being proactive with things and maintaining infrastructure rather than being reactive and waiting until things break. It costs a lot more to deal with it when it's broken than to maintain it. Plus the cost comes in smaller chunks when we're maintaining something than when we have to repair the whole thing. So I really appreciate that proactive mindset. An idea that was brought up tonight that I had not thought of before that I thought was a really good idea is if there's a way that maybe this can be done in steps so that it's not such a big jump. That was a really good idea. Coming down to it, I am in support of it because I feel like what you're asking for is funding things that are very important to me and not frivolous things. And I just want to thank you all for your hard work. I know that you have put a lot of effort and thought and time into making responsible decisions with our citizens' money. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else online or that's here?
Those are the only two that notified me that they wanted to make a comment. So
Okay.
if anybody else online would like to make a comment, you can go ahead and unmute them.
While looking to see if anybody does that. Anyone else here? Or we look to close the public hearing and address 3 people that have had questions. I would make a motion then that we close the adult. You guys make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'd make a motion, Mayor, that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Let's answer some questions. So we got staff here and by the way, I'm thrilled that so many people came tonight and so many people are online. This is the difficult part of the job, but it's an enjoyable part as well too, because and I think I can speak for council too, because seeing people come out and voice their opinion shows that there's some care and there's some passion there. If nobody comes out, then it's crickets and you just make the decision, right? This gets us thinking. Now,
can I just add that I think it's important, not just for us, but staff is sitting here hearing this. So every time budget comes up, this is fantastic because staff continues to say, okay, we've heard the public, we've heard them comment, and this is how we need to approach our budgets. I think it's fantastic. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. I recently addressed in my mayor's message about this situation. As many of our other council people put out information as well too. And, you know, I go over line items with people and try and cut budgets. And we've done that here. We met for a couple of nights in March and we went over specific line items. And, you know, we all have different things that we see as wants. And some of those wants that I may see maybe needs, and it may be different with you, but it was expressed an awful lot about needs and that we need police services, we need fire service. Okay, there's some other needs we need as well too, though. You need to have, and this was mentioned as well too, but you need to have water. And Brant, our city manager, I don't know that people in this town or city realize the water system that we have. We have a big city just to the north of us that has to buy all their water. We have waters in 5 reservoirs up above us. Now, the aquifers need to recharge, and that's important. We need snow, we need rain, but we have the ability to provide that water, that fresh culinary water. And I hear a lot of people complain about the irrigation water. I get it. We want to have gardens. We want to be self-sufficient. But if we can't live and survive with culinary water, then that's our first priority. I mean, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And to deliver that water, as was said by one person, that system is getting old, it's failing. And hence the water increase, which is a completely different thing than the tax increase. Okay, so we have looked over line items, and staff knows that I've sent them emails to continue to look. And so we will continue to do that. Now, I'm not going to try and answer all the questions because staff can answer better, but I'm going to give, well, there was a question about if the tax increase doesn't go through, what happens? Brent, you addressed that. Do you want to address it, or do you want somebody else?
Sure, I'll take the first stab at it. It becomes a policy question really for this council to determine what needs to be prioritized and cut. I don't think I could say, hey, Mike, what are you willing to cut? He's gonna say, I need more. Don't ask me that question. I could ask that every department head that. From an administrative standpoint, here's our position. And this is the balance we try to strike continually. And this is essentially the mantra. We're looking for administrative sustainability, political acceptability. So administratively as staff, we have a reasonable need to ensure we are administratively sustainable, that whatever we're doing is sufficient. We have funds to support it. But that may not be politically acceptable in what we're proposing. And so we're trying to bridge that gap. So one of the challenges we have in this situation is that we've already approved an increase. And so it depends, right? There's things we can do, and that is go to the police department and look for pay decreases or laying off officers, right? That's what happened, which causes this increase. Or we can look for cuts in other areas as mentioned by others. And do we reduce our park services? Or, but again, that comes from a place, from a political position on your side, determining what that is. Or finally, that is using our fund balance. So we have a healthier fund balance we've had in the past, where I don't know if the residents know, but at one point our fund balance was around the 5% mark, which is very low. And if we had an oh no windstorm, we don't have a lot of funds to draw on because of some financial, we had to make up some work. Councilmember Ince did a lot of work to help with that. But really where we are and why we have a healthy fund balance is due to the federal funds, the ARPA funds, and the CARES Act funds. We've been able to use those and actually put them into our savings. That gives us a little bit of a cushion to feel a little bit better if there is an uh-oh moment. So really what we're doing is if we don't fund this property tax increase, we're looking at that 1.7 million. We're already drawing 225,000, 227,000 to bring to 1.5 million. If we don't fund this, then we could reasonably use another 580,000, which brings our fund balance below $1 million. What that does is then cuts into potential wants, and that's pickleball courts, cemetery, and other splash pad, whatever the case might be. Those funds are there to give us a nice cushion, but also could fund those amenities. And to Kyle's point, yeah, can we hold off on some of these? We absolutely can. You have a lot of community or a lot of residents who are wanting certain things. Again, so the administrative sustainability part, our focus really are those core services. Pickleball courts is a want, an amenity that if we have concerns, then the recommendation for administration would be hold off on pickleball courts, hold off on cemetery, to understand if we are going to slip into a recession. But what we have in this budget is essentially still just trying to provide those core services and ensure that we don't slip into falling behind in certain areas. We're already struggling to keep up. Some of the other areas that I didn't mention earlier, I'm kind of going a little off topic, but it kind of works, is we have 1.4 million a year for our roads. And that's what we budgeted, which is 10% above last year for our projects, anticipating the inflationary cost, but our bids came back 1.8 million, which is what we have before you tonight. So we're seeing an increase in the infrastructure of $400,000. And so there's all these things coming in. Can we prioritize our road projects? We sure can. And put some on the back burner. Just costs a lot more if we try to play catch up, which is what we've been trying to do, in all honesty, since 2008-9 recession. Every city fell behind during that time. And I feel these federal funds, although we're going to be paying for them and our grandkids are going to be paying for them, has helped us as a city get a little bit back on track. And we've got to be careful not to slip far behind. So if we don't fund this property tax increase. We're gonna have to make some significant cuts because we've already pre-approved the wage increase for the police department. The fire district, the South Davis Fire, we have some say over that as a group of cities, but they're also dealing with the same pressures that we are. And so that would be using fund balance 100%, but that is not administratively sustainable. So as a recommendation, that would not be a recommendation from staff, because that is not administratively sustainable. It might be politically acceptable to fund the entire thing, but that's the balance we're trying to strike right now. So it really becomes a policy decision at this point of what council determines is important for this city to focus on when something has to give.
Mayor, can I make a comment as well?
You may, Chief.
Thank you. Paul Child, Chief of Police. And first off, I'm humbled that the comments have been made here today. I'm very thankful to the community members who expressed their support. It places a mantle on me that I feel the importance of what we do. So I really appreciate that. As mentioned, the police department did receive a significant increase in December. We were at a critical time, an extremely critical time. We were likely going to lose people. We have had an opening. We've had a position open since June 30th of last year that we still have not filled. However, I intend to make a job offer tomorrow. We have an excellent candidate that we finally found. We went through 4 hiring pools until we finally found someone that we felt good about and is going to represent us very well, but we've got to pay for him. Year after year after year, in my budgets that I've requested in the past, I've requested maybe 4 cars in a year, 1 gets cut out. Next year, we need 4 cars, 1 gets cut out. We're at a critical point with our vehicles right now. With our repairs, we're over budget. Our vehicles are overtaxed. We need all of our cars that we requested, and Brand has recognized that, and he's kept it in the budget because we are at a critical point now. It's one of those points where in years past, year after year after year, it's been cut, it's been cut, it's been cut, it's been cut. And now we're at a point where if it gets cut again, we're gonna have we're gonna have cars that aren't gonna work, for sure.
May I interrupt? We're gonna have the situation that they're having in some cities back east where they're doing police calls by telephone.
And our services will go down. So the pay raises that were approved last December, on my understanding, those were being paid by some reserve funds, and that this tax increase basically makes that whole to a big degree, where now we're not dipping into reserves, if I understand that correctly. If it wasn't approved, then I may not be making that job offer tomorrow that I wanted to make, or we may have to have no vehicles in our budget. It would be some serious challenges for us. So I just wanted to present that. There's been a lot of talk about the police department and our services and the impact that it has on this pay increase or the tax increase. So once again, I appreciate the council. I very much appreciate the support from the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
I do want to add one more thing. In this budget, and it'll be part of the discussion coming up, has to do with wages. We did receive a significant bump in December, which brought us up to where we needed to be. We had to be there. It was critical. And what's being proposed coming up is we're taking kind of a back seat now. It's a 2% for the police department across the board, whereas the rest of the city employees are receiving significantly higher percentage as they deserve. So we're kind of taking a little backseat now because we were given such a significant raise earlier on in the budget this last year. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Let's see what other questions were asked. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, there was a question brought up about relying just on property taxes and that for our revenues within our city. You know, in the private sector, many of us deal in the private sector, you can add a new service, you can add a new product, that type of thing. I mean, unless we start charging you, Dave, to $10, put a coin box on the tennis courts, you know, we can't raise, we don't raise fees that, I mean, we don't raise revenues that way, you know, but there is another way. We do have sales tax, okay? But if you look at what Nate presented with some of those charts, we are what, the 5th or 6th lowest of 15 cities in Davis County of property tax rates. And part of that is because we do have that sales tax. Look at some of those cities that have real high property taxes. They don't have an economic base. And that's when it frustrates me when people say, we don't want all this growth. We don't want this economic growth. Well, guess what? That economic growth helps keep our property tax rate down at the 5th and 6th, because something like Young Power Sports coming in, that we hope they're successful and they generate sales tax revenue. Those are items that can offset on just property tax. I remember the first time I was campaigning and I gave people examples of cities around this country, how high property tax rates are, because that's all they have to rely on. So we try and build those types of things as well too, to add to our tax base. Council, and the other questions that were asked.
The question was asked by two different people. Could we not put this off a while and make the decision later in the year? And we really can't because of state law.
Okay, do you want to explain that to them?
Yeah, the question was made. I know Andy, who has left, had made it. Someone else asked the question, could we not put it off and do this later in the year? State law defines the timetable under which it is done. We have already pushed it to the latest date that we could tonight. Has to be adopted before the end of the month. There will be the truth and taxation hearing process that we go through in August, which is again defined by state law. But there is nothing that we can do. It's either now or a year from now.
Bill, to add to your point, I think part of the question was, well, instead of 35%, follow the statutory timelines, but only do 10, 10, 15, do a portion of it. And I think we already have part of that question answered vis-a-vis the fact that most of this is already in our budget, in the proposed budget, the increase. I would also say that if you think through that, you wouldn't do a budget increase over a multi-period time equal commensurate to that one time period, because you're going to have to also make up the difference in upcoming years as well. So it wouldn't be the sum equals the parts over multiple years. There's a time value of money to it. So are you going to say instead of 10, 10, 15, really, are you saying 10, 13, 18 is really what you would have to contemplate. So that's a little bit beside the point. But
No,
I wanted to add it too.
That's fine.
A little color to what you said, but thank you.
I was gonna say, I think we also have to consider, in 2009, there was a pretty significant drop in revenues and sales tax, Class C road funds. I totally can appreciate, should we use more reserves to cover that now? My concern is that with a recession coming, that we may have a few years of less than what we've had on sales tax and other, Class C road funds. Those are things that we do have to look at as we investigate, the property tax increase.
I want the public to know that this council and councils that I've worked with in the past, in my 4.5 years being there, they always have been very conscientious. And, I mentioned in my mayor's message, I spent sleepless nights since we started doing this budget in March, and I'm sure some of them have. And then you have things on top that we're trying to balance what the voters said last November, that they want a cemetery. I mean, but we're having to look at that with with all these other increases as well too. I mean, you know, that it's something that they take serious and they take really serious. And Brent just mentioned, yeah, you could cut out some of the amenities. Well, I fought hard for cemetery. It's well documented how I've tried 6 or 7 different things, but that is an amenity when you think about it as well too. I mean, it's nice to have, but only half of our Davis County cities have cemeteries, you know, and it's not, some people think that that's a city service that's supposed to be provided. And, you know, I'll continue to battle for a cemetery, but this one could be very problematic in the high cost as well too, with the cost of land. And so they're balancing all these issues and they're taking it very serious in what they do. Did we answer, council, that you were taking notes, staff? Did we answer all the questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have one question. Julianne's park impact fees. I know she's anxiously waiting for that response. So park impact fees, again, are very restrictive in terms of how we use them, and they can only be used for items identified in our park facilities plan, which technically, according to our park facilities plan, I believe there's only room for 2 more courts technically, and that's at Freedom Hills Park. So if we try to use park impact fees, it's actually restricted to maybe only 2 more courts because that's what we've identified our level of service. So with the way we've actually done it by using general fund to complete the Freedom Hills Park, we actually unrestrict the funds by park impact fees being collected to essentially pay the loan from the general fund, which unrestricts them, which then they can be used for pickleball courts, the entire complex. So it actually unrestricts it and gives you a lot more flexibility. If you keep it in the box of park impact fees, very restricted. And so we have to submit to the state how we intend on using these funds for the next 6 years. And if ours is where we're paying a loan and it goes to the general fund reserve, it unrestricts them and frees them up even more so to be used for park amenities. It's up to the mayor. He's the boss.
You can ask a clarifying question. Come on up though, because we got to be able to hear you.
Yes, we could chat about it.
But just because it was brought up. But are those funds that are collected, those impact fees that are specifically meant for park, like new park improvements? There is, you know how much has been paid by developers for that. And I understand that you've unrestricted them. But let me just, this is my clarifying question. Is there enough funds in that to pay for the building of pickleball courts?
So potentially there's $1 million owed to the general fund. Now, what we collect from the general or from park impact fees with the developed Summerhill Lane and CW Urban, I don't have those numbers or projections in front of me, but potentially.
Okay, that's what I was.
And we could talk about that often.
I'm feeling I'm missing something, but I've tried to be as complete as possible. Council, are we good?
Well, there's a question about if I think I understood it right, aggressive type of taxation to consider lowering the lower half of the distribution.
Is okay, I'm gonna have Nate come up and share what the county has available. So we don't necessarily control how the county collects this property tax. You know, if we give rebates for a certain income level or a certain age, like 55 older, we are obligated to pay that. So let's say, for example, we offer this program and we set aside $20,000 to help pay. We have to pay that to the county. The county is the one who creates the programs that makes some type of rebates or discounts. We don't control that. So does that make sense? So if we offer a program, we're funding it out of the general fund. But Nate can talk about the resource that's available, some of the resources available from the county.
Yeah, so the county has they call it the homeowner low income abatement. There are some qualifications as far as age and income, but this is a resource. It's all dealt through the county, so the city doesn't have any control over it. But you can apply through the county, and if you meet these qualifications, then they can give you, it says up to $1,110 of property tax can be abated based on income. So that is a resource for people that meet those qualifications that are having a hard time affording the property taxes. They can file this appeal through the county. But as far as what we can do as a city, there's not.
Do you know how those funds are, how those offsets or abatements are funded?
I don't.
Okay. So it doesn't come out of the city fund?
No, it
I
doesn't
guess
come out
if
of
you
the
don't know it, you don't see it, which means it doesn't come out of the city.
right. No,
Okay.
it's county funded.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, I've been as complete as I could be. I think staff, council, I don't see her anymore. We got some votes to take. and
The
then-
one question we haven't answered that was brought up a couple of times, I forgot about, was the furniture out here in the lobby. I think we need to discuss how the council members feel about, do we need $10,000 with that? Do we want to take some of these chairs and put out there for a while till? I mean, we're not even holding court, so there's probably not a real need for anything.
So
out there.
administratively, that is definitely not a priority. So it's in the budget, anticipating that court might start meeting, but there's discussions going on, and I don't know if Lisa has any insight, but court, we haven't heard anything about them needing to meet, and our current arrangement is sufficient, absolutely, for right now. We are looking at used furniture. There are office buildings that are constantly selling their furniture they no longer need, that you can get for a fraction of the cost. We are searching for that type of furniture at this point. That's easier to clean, to wipe down, things like that. But it absolutely can be held off. That's not a priority at all.
And thank you, Brad. And that reminds me that one example, we were talking in our budget sessions about bank fees. And it was brought up how, hey, we really helped this one bank a lot. Go there, say, we're not going to pay these fees. We're going to go elsewhere. Well, guess what? We did, and we got a substantial reduction. So we've looked at line items after line items, and like I said, we continue to have staff pouring over it. So.
And this, I'll just say, this is a really hard thing for me. I'm with Dave. What can I give up? I live in the older part of Centerville. I know a lot of single people that are on fixed incomes. And I know that, to me, $10 a month is probably not going to hurt me. I can go without my Big Mac once a week. But it's been a really hard, the mayor says he's had sleepless nights. I've had sleepless nights and I've had tears. It's really hard for me to raise these taxes on people that I know, the ones that Stephanie talks about, that are the 25,000 or the 30,000 a year people, in order to compensate for the people on the other end. And raising taxes, there was a really hard thing for me to do. I think we have an excellent police department. I was very concerned when our chief said to me one day, I go up and I've got to take what's left over because they're all offering the guys coming out of the academy money, and I'm down on the bottom below the list. And when they're coming out, they're not going to pick me over somebody $5 more an hour. I know we had officers who were offered way more than $5 or $6 an hour, and they stayed with us. When we gave our police officers their raises, I promised to also look at our public works. And we've tried this, coming through with this budget, to be fair to our public works, because they're just as important as far as when you say you want somebody that knows your community. We have the best water system, probably one of the best in the nation. But if we don't have anybody that knows how to run it, we're in real trouble. And so I think we also need to pay respect to our other employees and our public works employees that are also helping. And if there was any way to not do this tax increase, I voted against a tax increase last year because I am really tight. You go out to dinner with me and you don't get a drink. And my children will all tell you they order all their kids' drinks now because they were so mad at me for not ordering drinks all their lives. I'm really tight, and I'm very concerned about the people in the community, but I really feel like this tax increase has to come. We have to fund our employees in order to keep the employees. And that's what gives us the quality of life we have, is our employees. So I'm sorry. I wish I could find more things to cut out.
Nate, when you opened up, you said that there was one other resolution that didn't make it into our packet that we need to adopt.
No, it's there.
So I
Um,
see resolution 2022-15 and 2022-14.
Is that correct?
Is that all?
Yes, so one is adopting the
Correct. The tentative
fiscal
budget.
year 23 tentative operational budget. The second is setting the
Setting the rate.
proposed tax rate.
Yeah.
And then the third item that's not a resolution, but you need to
Make a motion.
make a motion,
Okay, that's what
is
I,
setting the truth and taxation date,
okay.
the date, time and place.
Hopefully that's August 23rd, because that's what I told people in the newsletter.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Do we know that, so that we can make a motion properly?
Yeah.
We
so
know what that
proposed-
is.
At the last council meeting, we informally
Well-
agreed on, or suggested August 23rd, 6
Has,
p.m.
has it been confirmed by the county that we can,
Yes.
that we can get that?
Yes.
Okay,
So I
so
talked to the
August
county, it's
23rd,
open.
at what time?
6 o'clock is what was
Okay.
suggested.
Yeah,
last
that's, I
meeting.
just wanted to, I knew that was what was proposed on our side. I just didn't know how, if it had been accepted by the county.
Yep.
Okay.
So now, public, you get to see the council work on approving those resolutions or not approving them. And you're welcome to stay for this vote and watch this. You're welcome to stay the rest of the meeting, but you might be bringing your sleeping bags because we're taking a while tonight, but it's well worth it. Yes, you ought to come up, Dave, one more time. Oh, I just want to make sure that everybody feels that they had an opportunity.
Yeah. So, you opened the door for charging at pickleball courts?
Well, I threw that out.
Sure. I just ran the numbers.
That's how you raise revenues in the private sector.
Yeah. So I just ran the numbers and I've already, several years ago, I developed spreadsheets and financial model for indoor tennis courts. So I've gone through this countless hours on tennis courts. Pickleball courts, if you charged half the amount for a tennis court, for the 10 pickleball courts, the top line revenue, if you filled them all the time, and that can help with that. Top line revenue per year is 633,000 for 10 pickleball courts.
And if I can counter.
Yes.
So,
that's
so this
fine.
is the administratively sustainable, politically acceptable. It's a public amenity, and charging you actually eliminate a portion of your community from participating in a public amenity by charging.
But my neighbors that have fixed incomes that are single women for the most part are not coming to the pickleball courts because they're tennis.
I understand, yeah.
And
But as a
baseball.
public amenity, we
Well-
try to do our best to make it available to all.
Right, you could section out part of the time for the kiddies or something. I'm just throwing that out
Sure.
because I just did.
So that's a policy decision. So council.
So
can debate.
and I have software that I would let the city use at cost to schedule. So it's,
Thanks, Dave.
there you go.
We'll go down the road, see how it is. We need to
Okay.
start voting. Okay, Kyle, one more. Then they got to get these resolutions.
Non-pickleball related. Just a quick clarification question on this. Because costs are increasing across the board for everybody, including in groceries, retail, everything. Has anything been looked at what that's going to do for sales tax revenue increases to the budget?
Yes.
As well as the coming online and development of the Young Power Sports dealership, what kind of sales tax revenue that would generate towards the city budget? I haven't heard any conversation on it, so I was just curious if that's if that's been built into this budget, or if that is kind of like, we hope that comes along.
It's a great
We'll do the
question.
tax rate increase anyway.
That's a great question. And we're going to keep it, we're going to answer this, but if we keep getting responses, I got to open the public hearing back up because my attorney's going to be upset at me, for not following rules.
Going to be.
She's already there.
It's very hot. right here. It's very warm.
That's why I'm so grateful I have staff, right? To keep me online, okay?
She's already kicked me for even answering.
So, but do you want to answer that question?
Yes.
Or Nate?
So So last year, we did very well. In fact, what funded the property taxing or what funded the police department wages was not using our reserves, but the increase in our sales tax. Our in sales tax was out of control. We were 15% above last year, 20% above last year. So there was an excess of $600,000 over what we even budgeted, which was 3% above last year. So that's actually what funded the police department, not our reserves. So that's why we were able to do that. But we can't anticipate that for the upcoming year. So we've budgeted even more than I usually feel comfortable with, and that's 5% above. Not what we received, but over last year. So even if we made the same amount next year that we made this year, would be above what we even forecasted. But we're already seeing a little bit weakening in the economy and the spending and inflation. The prices do go up, sales tax includes, so people are spending less. Not really sure. Generally, when there's a recession, the city feels it about a year later. So it gives us an opportunity to adjust our budgets and make those changes that we need to. So we're at 5% above our forecasted amount for this fiscal year, which is far more than I anticipated. I like it to be no more than 3. We could even kept it the same. But based on if we don't collect those revenues, we're going to have to pivot and make some changes, just like you have to in local government. And where do we cut? And that's potentially 4th of July, those less critical. Do we do less on our roads? We will have to make those decisions. But that's why property tax is so important for a city, because it's not as volatile as sales tax. You need to provide those basic services. And that's why it's important not to rely on sales tax to fund your basic core services like your police and fire. You want property tax funding that. Those other increases, sales tax could fund those items, because then it's a little bit easier to pivot off some of those. Does that make sense? So we have anticipated it. One financial manager, director I worked with closely that does a bunch of cities across the state says, hey, you can go up to 10%. And I'm like, take a hike. I'm not going 10% on sales tax, right? But that's what he's seeing on his end. But we want to be conservative. If we see more, then it just goes back into our reserves and just continues to give us that cushion we need. I think the numbers from the 2008-2009 recession, Jake, over the course of that time was about a 20% decrease in our sales tax. So that's a hit of about $1 million. So if we want to keep operations going without changing, we need to have $1 million in our reserves to anticipate that hit. So.
And Yen Sports won't be open for at least a year.
Yeah.
Mayor, are we technically in the closed session? Which means, can we make?
We're out of the open session.
Sorry, are we technically out of the open?
We
session?
are, yes, we are ready for a motion, and I respect the laws that we have in government. I'm just so used to the private sector that I get with clients and we brainstorm. But it hit me. To continue to take comments, I have to open the public hearing up, and it is closed. And there's things like rules like that the council people, not more than 2 of them can discuss city issues at a time. Those are for all our protection. And I've learned the value of them. So, but so we got to go to, yes, the motion time.
I'd like to make a motion if that's okay with other council members. I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2022-15, adopting the fiscal year 2023 tentative operational budget with 2 amendments. The first amendment being to remove the furniture line item from our budget, and the second would be to amend the court's copier budget by half.
And I think that
Amend
was
it by half up or by half down?
By half down, slash in half, 50% of what it is.
So that is the motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second to that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll.
Didn't we already cut what the court asked for?
No.
We had not.
We did not? How much did the court ask for?
I believe 5 or 6. It was 5.
5 in the budget right now.
There are options of leasing. We can work with it and see what's available.
I'd second the motion. Oh, you second.
We have a second.
Never mind. I apologize.
All right, no further discussion. Let's start with roll call vote. Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 4-0. That's resolution 22-15, right? Councilman Summer Hayes?
Yeah.
So we need a resolution on setting the proposed tax levy.
So Brent
Or a
or
motion.
Lisa, if I make a motion to approve setting the tax levy, do I also say that I'm approving the tax levy less that
Correct.
small portion? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, Nate's saying,
Nate, is that correct?
Nate threw dagger.
Set me straight.
So,
No, I just wanted to give options is all. So to balance the budget with the removal of those items, we can use less fund balance, or we can reduce the property tax amount, or any revenue amount. So that's,
We want to reduce the property tax.
okay, so that's your.
That, I guess that's what you're saying. You can do it either way, so make it part of my motion if I choose to do so.
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to
Fair.
resecond that?
Okay.
I think he's
I
moving.
don't know. I haven't made the motion quite yet. I want to make sure I understand it before I make
Oh,
the
okay.
motion, Bill. So I will make a motion to approve resolution 2022-14, setting the proposed tax levy as identified in the amended notation in the previous resolution by lowering the associated property tax levy.
And furniture.
No, I've
I think I think that's what he's saying, because the furniture was taken out in
that was included in the last
2022-15.
resolution. So I'm saying we're gonna make that shortfall up by a commensurate reduction in the property tax mill levy amount.
Second,
You have a motion a second. Further discussion on that.
Does that make sense, Bill? We're lowering the cost. We're not paying for furniture anymore.
Clarification.
We're not making,
But you didn't include the furniture in adjusting the tax rate. That's what I'm saying.
we've reduced the furniture, we've reduced the copier, and therefore we're reducing the
We're reducing the increase to cover
the
those
property
minor
tax, which
amounts.
means
But it's both
property
of them, not
tax.
just the one. Right?
correct.
But you only said the one.
you saying in your motion, you didn't mention furniture, so you just wanted to make sure that was in your motion. In the tax levy.
The way I
but
understood it.
didn't we take it out in
reduce
the
the tax
Let me
operational
make sure,
budget?
make
You
sure,
did,
let
but
me
if you
make sure
want to
everybody's
reduce,
clear.
if you take it out of the operational budget, we're still gonna collect that $10,000, and now it doesn't have a home, so to say, right? So you're trying to reduce the tax levy to get that $10,000 plus the 2,500.
That's
out of
correct.
there. So yes, you're reducing by 12,500. So if you say, I would like to reduce the property tax level by 12,500. That
Yes,
will
that's what I'm
answer-
saying, a
okay.
commensurate.
That's what I was coming up to say. Make it simple.
Sorry, maybe my mind is working and it's not coming out quite right. So what I'm saying.
Yeah, then
The
that way
motion- The motion is that we approve setting the proposed tax levy less the amount that we've already approved in resolution 2022-15.
Sure.
Clear as bud? And we got a second on that?
Is that clear for staff?
Further discussion or
Maybe just as
clarification?
importantly?
We
Even
good?
before you mentioned the motion, it was clear what you were trying to do. But your motion.
I just didn't
is-
think you've done what you wanted
Make
to
sure
do.
the motion
Thank
is
you.
right.
Hey, I'll take any help I can get. I'm not afraid of being embarrassed.
All right, let's vote on it. Take a
So
reverse,
long as I'm doing the right thing, I'm embarrassed.
reverse order. Councilwoman Hurst coming this way.
Aye.
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 And that motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Last thing on this item is scheduling the public hearing for the truth in taxation. We don't, do we just need you want a motion on that? Okay,
I'll make a motion that we schedule the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023 final budget and truth and taxation hearing for August 23rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. here at Centerville City Hall.
Second.
a motion is second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the truth and taxation is August 23rd. Okay, let's go, move on, should we? Let's, this second item is also another public hearing matter that was tabled from 2 weeks ago. This is a compensation schedule on justice court judge compensation. Is there more that needs to be brought forward on this? from 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you, everyone. Let's-
You're awesome.
Let's leave him.
No, we don't have any new information.
Okay.
Unless there's questions we can answer.
Is there any questions for staff?
I only had one question. I wasn't in attendance, but I watched the YouTube video. Given our statutory requirements, because we have statutory requirements where you can't decrease, you have to match for salary increases. What's really the actual real range of compensation that you can really consider? Because that doesn't get mentioned in the staff report, because we're proposing 58,000, but we didn't say, well, we could statutorily be at some other. Does
For
my
the
question
judge.
make sense?
For the
Is this
judge's
for the
salary.
judge?
Correct.
That it's actually capped. And are you saying what would it have been?
What I'm
if
saying
It
is
wasn't capped?
there are in reading through the letter to mayor, there are statutory requirements where it can't be less than the increases for other city staff. And it can't actually decrease. And the recommendation was at 58,000, which was on the highest end. Was there any room statutorily where there's a range, or is it just 58,000?
Well, there's
Okay, so
I'm not
there's not an
suggesting-
option, but
I'm
the
not
judge,
suggesting I'm in favor of it. I just want to know the mechanics.
yeah, the judge's salary by statute has to have the same percentage increase as the rest of the employees received. And so that would push, and then there's a statutory range,
minimum, maximum.
and that's why he's
So that's what it's
already at
already
the
said.
maximum.
So the range is the number.
Given our, the percentage increase, it would take him over the statutory.
Okay.
In this case,
so
we would
the
take
answer
into
is
account
the range is the number.
So we would, it's maxed out to the range. We factor in the police department wages in December and the current wages being proposed for staff. It would have taken them well above, so I believe it's an 8 to 9% increase to max them out.
So I guess my question, why did we table it last meeting?
Because if you didn't approve the compensation schedule per se for
Oh,
the
got it.
employees,
Then, yeah.
Budget.
Thanks for the clarifier.
Yeah.
then it would impact the budget.
We actually debated not doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
To make a
We
We
actually were
decided we
good.
better just in case there was. anything
Right, in
changed.
case there's changes.
Yes. Yep. All right.
Lots to keep track of.
So do we have somebody who's willing to make a motion on, oh, wait,
Is this still open?
is the
in
public hearing still open on this?
Yeah, we left them all open.
We left the, okay, so this is a public hearing matter regarding the Justice Court judge compensation. So the public hearing is still open. So any comments from the public?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion. Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we would look for a motion what number is this?
2022.
Make
Yeah,
a motion to approve.
well, we have two, don't
We
we,
gotta do
Lisa?
12 too, don't we?
We have 2212 and 2022-16.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
yes, because there's the ordinance, not just a resolution.
Yes. So a motion for the ordinance?
Bill's can do it.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-16, fixing the compensation for municipal court justice of Centerville City Justice Court.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote, Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. There we have ordinance 2022-12 as well, too, on this, right?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion for that?
Make a motion that we approve resolution 2022-12 as presented.
Second.
Motion is second, further discussion?
Sorry.
Just to clarify, it's an ordinance.
Yeah, it's not a
Oh.
resolution, it's an ordinance. yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, clarification, clear noted.
Clarification, make a motion that we approve ordinance 2022-12.
Second.
Motion is second, further discussion. Councilwoman Meekum,
Aye.
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 that motion passes unanimously. This is a public hearing item that is not open because this is new. This is item number 3. This is a fiscal year 2022 budget amendment. Dave, do you want to tell us about the proposed budget amendment?
Did we get them all this time?
All right, so this is our final
Yes.
budget amendment for
That-
the
that we
current
know of.
fiscal year.
You're promising us that?
It's
Caveat, you can
the final chance we have to meet, so
There's
I'll have
Okay.
to- I'll have to keep that promise.
All right.
We will have an internal amendment as we finalize some items, but it will not require increasing the total revenues or expenditures, and so that's something that we can take care of internally.
But you will be notified of what those changes were.
Yeah, we'll notify you later. Okay, so before you tonight, I'll just go fund by fund. In the general fund, we are proposing to increase sales tax revenue by $83,500. This is for grading Fire Break Road, the Dual Creek. Dual Creek didn't pay us, or they didn't bill us for 2 or 3 years. And so we finally got those bills. So it was obviously quite a bit. So instead of using fund balance for that, we just selected to use sales tax, keep it easy. And then the recreation transfer that you'll see in a second. Just police.
Of that 83,000, I just want to clarify that you have to give me exact number, Nate, but it was like 220,000 is sales tax that we've collected that was not added to the previous amendment. So there's still $150,000 of revenue that's not being recognized in this budget that will go to the reserves. Does that make sense?
Is that gonna be part of your internal amendment?
Well,
No.
it just goes in, it's not, we don't recognize it, but we do collect. Well, I'll let Nate explain.
Yeah, so we've received a lot more sales tax than what this budget amendment would recognize. So what Grant's saying is we're recognizing the revenue just enough to match our expenses.
Yeah.
But we will have excess revenue
That'll just go in general.
that's unbudgeted, so it'll just roll into our fund balance. Our police department received the ADF grant. If I remember correctly, this pays for cameras and items for their vehicles. So they received $5,000 for that. So we need to recognize that revenue. The street department received a grant to replace one of their dump trucks. On the amount of $36,828. Again, we're just recognizing that. And the parks received an $8,000 grant for the community forestry partnership grant, and this is to plant trees. Now these building fees and the building inspection fees, we budget a certain amount, and then it's kind of unknown, what developers are going to bring us throughout the year. This was a big year. We received a lot more than we had budgeted. And so as for some of the fees that they pay for our building inspection and some of our engineering service. And so essentially we're recognizing enough of that revenue again to cover our expenses for those services. So you can see over here on the right that although we're only recognizing 70,000 of building fees and increasing our building inspection by 50,000, we received much more than that as our actual revenue.
And why aren't we putting that in?
Well, we're
'Cause
just
you're
trying to
only trying
cover
to
our
offset your
expenses, so we
costs.
got to recognize the revenues to cover the expenses. The expenses are above what we budgeted.
We very
So
well
what
could-
you're putting in covers the expenses, the others going to the reserve fund.
Correct.
So when we have the audit, one of the things they look at is that we didn't overspend. They don't care as much on the revenue side, but we can't overspend or else we get a finding. And so that's what we're trying to recognize here is that as it sits right now, because we've received so many building inspection fees and we have such high inspection costs and engineering costs, we need to recognize those fees enough to recognize our expenses or else we'll get a finding. So that's all we're trying to do with those two line items. Going on to the next one, we received more than expected contributions for the emergency preparedness fair. So we're increasing that revenue line so that again, we can later on, you'll see that we'll increase their expense line, give them the available funds to spend for that. And then this $5,000 line, because sales tax is more than we expected, the way we're distributing our sales tax with 85% to parks and 5% to Whitaker and the theater, we're increasing that revenue in the general fund that goes to the Whitaker Museum. Okay, then go down on the general fund expenses. Again, these are just the items we covered that we're increasing the ability for them to spend for the emergency preparedness fair, giving police the ability to spend for their grant. This 11,000 for the Fire Break Road, that's one that Mark Marchant asked for, but I'm not sure it's going to get done. I haven't had a chance to confirm with him, so I put it in there just as contingency. With it being so late in the year, I'm not sure if it'll be spent or not, but we put it in. Again, this 36,000 is for the grant for their dump truck replacement. Here, the 70,000 is again offset by the fees. And we see the $8,000 for the planning. This 44,200 is for the Jewel Creek issue that we previously discussed. Again, we had budgeted 14,000 for the year, but since they billed us multiple years, it came at a much higher cost. We're just going to offset that with sales tax.
And there was a full audit completed because there was facilities we weren't paying water for, others that we were charged differently. So Bruce worked closely with Robert. So that's why there was this delay as we were trying to clean up the facilities and charge properly for the facilities.
And we say the same thing in the Whitaker home. That's their portion of the Jewel Creek bill. The 5,000 as previously mentioned is for the increase in wrap tax fees that gets allocated to Whitaker. Again, it just gives them the ability to spend that towards their capital purchases. 50,000 for our building inspection services that we previously talked about. Then this 27,000 recreation. So historically, we have transferred the amount to cover the cost of a rec coordinator. So the general fund will transfer the cost of the employee over to the rec fund. Previously, that was a part-time position, so we only needed 41,000 to do so. Now with a full-time position, we're proposing that we use sales tax funds, increase that transfer by $27,000. That will cover the cost of the recreation coordinator. So yeah, that's the proposed transfer there.
This is Bryce.
Mhm.
He wants me in there.
No, I just wanted to know
I'm
what it was.
joking. No, I know.
Okay, moving on to our other funds, and our recreation fund, again, we're going to recognize the revenue and also the expense to pay for those wages. And then we also received a $75,000 donation for baseball from Lando Frost. So we're recognizing that revenue and then also recognizing the expense to give them the ability to spend it on their baseball. Okay, going on to wrap. Proposing increasing our wrap tax revenue by 100,000. Again, that gives us the ability to separate it out with 85% going to parks, 5% to Whitaker, and 5% to the theater, with the remaining 5% staying in the wrap tax fund.
Those are all the fund balances, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the theater,
Yeah, that's their own.
yeah, that won't go into fund balance, but. Okay, again, our park fund, just recognizing that increase in wrap tax. The transportation fund, we received more than expected additional transit local tax, which is sales tax related. So we're recognizing that increase in the revenue and just throwing it into the capital projects fund. In the water fund, we received fees for developer fees for new construction. It's been a big year for water as well. So we're recognizing everything that is in the fund or in that revenue line right now. So you can see that total, we have 1,090,000. So we're proposing increasing that revenue line by $1,015,207. And then we will put that expense into the developer projects. So again, developers pay us this fee, we put in their water line. I don't anticipate we're going to use all this, but it is just as a formality, it's there available, so they'll get as much done as they can. And then next year, or whenever they finish it, we will actually pay for it. Okay, and then drainage fund. Here we had the Cottonwood Drive and London Road storm drains that came in more than budgeted. These projects have been approved at a previous council meeting. But just as a kind of contingency, I'm requesting the use of fund balance to cover these costs in the amount of $250. If you remember last year, we held an emergency meeting and suggested using $900,000 worth of fund balance because I thought we were going to come way over, and I was completely wrong. We barely used any of that. So I'm hoping this is another one of those cases, but just as a contingency.
Nate,
But yes.
maybe this question should go to Mike. Mike, so as a council, we approve hard bids, right? These are hard bids on London Road and Cottonwood Drive. So why are we approving essentially a change order on a hard bid? Am I understanding that correctly? If I, in the way I'm asking it, like, if we've done a hard bid and a contractor comes back and said, oh, sorry, we kind of messed up. It really costs us 250 grand more on a $318,000 project.
To answer that question, how much was it over?
But why is it over if
We
it's a
could
hard
look at-
bid?
So to answer the question, it's a unit price bid. So for
Okay.
example, if they lay a little bit more pipe, there's a unit price associated per foot. Or maybe there's more curb and gutter replacement that has to take place.
So Kevin, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
Were your drawings bad?
No, things happen in the field. So
Okay.
the drawings are adequate to receive the bid and to have the standard detail and drawings included in the specifications. Sometimes more often than not, we have jobs come under. So, we could give you the last few years of how jobs have come in, but more often than not, they come in under because we're trying to save in the field.
So it's a hard bid, but on unit pricing, not on a project base, full project base.
It's not a hard bid, it's a unit price bid,
Okay.
Not lump sum.
not a lump
Yeah,
sum
not a
bid,
lump sum.
unit price. So if they have less patching that they had to do for the tie-in, we pay them what they actually performed.
So in this case, what would have driven that up to almost double?
I don't believe that the project has gone double. I'd have
Well,
to
we're
look at the,
being asked to approve 250,000 on a $318,000 job, so it's almost double.
More than
and this is just
No.
for,
It would have to be 318.
No, all right.
this is just for which project?
This is for London Road and Cottonwood Drive. So the bid came in at probably just right around where we had budgeted for capital projects. I think this number is probably well more than we need.
This is his $900,000. That's what he.
This is
prefaced the whole thing
essentially-
with. We're overestimating because we don't want to find him.
So this is the hard part about enterprise funds, is the projects that we do for water and drainage.
I get that. I'm not questioning over allocating for potential projects, which is what you're referring to. My question more relates to if it's a unit price bid is going to be based off of a set of drawings.
Yeah, and
And
I need
so
to get the.
what
I
are the
would need-
changes in the field from the drawings that would substantiate that big of a differential?
I don't believe that there is that big of a difference. I'd have to get the bid schedule, see what the bid was. I'm not prepared to show
Okay.
that right now.
That's
That's
why I'm asking these questions. So like, as a council, we're being asked to approve 250 grand, but I want it to be based on something.
And I don't know if this is the case in this instance, but sometimes we have projects that go past the fiscal year. So say, for example, last year, we had Casa Loma for another water line project that went past June 30th. They reconcile last fiscal year. Well, now you have that Casa Loma water line project, but some of that's bumped into this fiscal year. So again, there's not a $250,000 overage on those projects. I'd need to get the bid schedule
and what we're paying. I don't think there's even been any significant change order of 10% to date, but
So really the request then is a contingency request.
I believe so.
Yeah, we
I-
have some, we can look in our financial statement and you can see the.
Sorry to shut you
project.
down, Kevin.
No, you're fine.
This is what we do with our contractors,
We
so.
can get those
If
numbers for you.
if we're harping over 10 grand for furniture, I'm gonna harp over 250 grand, so.
Is this the London Road culinary and storm drain?
So, yeah.
So
this
the
is
bid, I've got the bid tabulations, we approved both of these projects. But these numbers are really high because I think they just are combined with so who got the project? Great Basin, Ormond, or?
Great Basin got the London Road and Ormond got the
Right.
Cottonwood.
Okay, so the engineer's estimate on London Road was 442,000 and Great Basin got that one for 479.
So where does the
So it was
318?
slightly higher than yeah,
And
that's what
that
I'm
does
saying.
not include
'Cause-
pipe and parts though. So
That's just
we need-
labor?
That's just labor. So
Well, and
we
it's
would need
both,
to-
yeah, the water line and,
We also approved the pipe costs, right?
and then what was the
The
other?
pipe price was
Cottonwood?
also approved, yes. So we would
Bid
need to combine.
tabulation for Cottonwood Drive.
318 is the original budget.
Okay,
amount.
so Cottonwood Drive was also culinary water and storm drain. The engineer's estimate was 456,000. And Ormond got that one at 507. Yeah, so I don't know why there's a 318.
318 is the original budgeted amount for capital projects.
So,
With the,
so we set money aside to stay within budget, not using fund balance. We just say, hey, you've got 318,000, and then they pick the projects. Now, they came back and said, these are the projects we need, but we have to use reserves to do it now. So the budget was set before the projects were bid out.
Okay.
So 318
So
is what it is,
you're
just to
using,
be.
you're using last year's
Just to
budget, line item
stay
budget
in
number.
budget.
So now, so we're using 250,000 because that working with, I'm sure Cameron and them and Kevin, how much we're going to spend through the rest of the fiscal year. We might even use more during next fiscal year, which is we've budgeted for. Now, the one thing to note here that's more concerning is just that $1 million fund balance on this one. You're using 250 now. And again, Nate's hoping we're overestimating for this year, but nonetheless, we're going to have to spend it somewhere. Whether it's this fiscal year or next fiscal year. We have another drainage project of, I think, 661,000 is being used. So this is really going to deplete our fund balance in drainage. That's
Correct.
next year. So
Yeah.
just be mindful of that. But these projects are saving on mobility costs because this outfit's out of Montana. I don't know. And so if we delayed this over 3 years, it would have cost us more money. So we're trying to get all the lining of the pipe done in 1 year versus over 3 years, which would actually cost a lot more.
So for example, let's fast forward to this time next year and there's a budget request. Is it gonna be this line item on page 59 of our budget that's capital projects, $1.4 million? Because there's no other number to use.
In the drainage fund,
No,
gotta go to the drainage fund for the capital.
that's transportation projects.
Yeah.
Let's just say it was a transportation project then. Would it be referencing back to this number in the budget? That's what essentially what you're saying, right?
So yeah, we just have a
318.
balanced budget, but then we don't know what the projects are. For example, we're gonna approve tonight, possibly. We budgeted 1.4 million, but actually our bids came back 1.8 million.
I'm just saying, I'll be able to reference back to this
Yes.
number always.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that, what he's talking about with 1.4, that is the 318, correct?
Essentially.
Well, it's a
Just making
different fund.
sure.
I'm
Yeah, I know
referencing
it's a different
transportation fund,
fund,
yes,
but I'm
yes.
just saying,
Yep.
it's the same concept.
But those
It's the
projects were
budget.
much more than the 318, and therefore the 250 is, you know, more like $1 million. And the 318 was budgeted before we got the numbers, and both those bids came in higher than the engineer's estimate, because this is what the economy is doing, so.
Yeah,
So-
Kevin didn't know that materials and labor were gonna be
Right.
twice as much as they
So
are. Were when you were
They've-
doing budget
they've done-
January of last year.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have two projects, one cost, did you say 507, and one was
479.
That's
So
just-
when you say $1 million,
But that's not the
Lisa, you're
materials either.
talking about the collective sum of both of those projects.
Exactly.
but we've only budgeted, we currently have only, if we approve this 250,000, we've only paid for 570,000.
Half is
You're
split in the
coming-
water fund and half is. Right.
Okay.
You have two culinary and drainage funds.
Right, but the total of, is some coming out of the water, so some is coming out of drainage, some will come out of water. Okay, thank you.
Are those
That was
those
really
are
helpful.
not quite reflective on our our next or upcoming agenda item on our fund balance positions though, right? That'll be a drawdown from our balance position that we talked about later tonight, whenever we get to that. Okay. So that'll be helpful to know, okay, where will we be at on these fund balances once these projects are done? It's nice to know it's in the checking account before you spend.
Our drainage fund does have about 1 million in cash right now.
Correct.
So they do have enough to cover.
But to Councilman Summer's point, this 250 is kind of an estimate then, right?
Over.
It is, because we,
Okay.
as we were
Because it
saying,
seems
it
so-
crosses fiscal years, and so it's hard to know, if they got a lot done up through June 30th, then we could completely finish the drainage project this fiscal year. If they weren't able to finish it, then we might be paying for some of it next fiscal year. That makes sense.
We just don't want an audit finding by underestimate.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I get when you say, well, we got $1 million
Can we
fund,
have-
and I'm gonna say, well.
So
we're spending
Councilmember
more.
Rents is an
When is that gonna
For
be get
year-end
replenished if it gets drawn down?
No,
Because we don't have,
Yeah.
I mean, we got
Let's not have that
562 transfers
There's
this
no
year as
like
part of this
I
budget,
know.
so that only gets us half.
The clean opinion.
The clean opinion, that's right.
Thank you, Kevin. Nate, you got through it, right? Those last
Yep, that's
ones?
everything.
All right, so this is any questions for Nate before we go? Okay, public hearing, motion to open the public hearing for the fiscal year 22 budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public hearing now open on the fiscal year 2022 budget amendment.
We do have some on Zoom still, if we wanted.
So does anybody respond to that one?
Nobody said that they want to comment on this one. but
Okay.
there's still some online.
Seeing no comments, motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, let's go then
Make a
to,
re- don't.
go ahead.
Don't we need to pass the resolution?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, that's what I was waiting for.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-20. Amending the fiscal year 22 budget as outlined.
Second.
Motion a second, further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Councilman Meekum,
Aye.
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 that motion passes 4-0. Dave Walker, get up here, quit sleeping in the back. Dave is wonderful. I can say that to him, and he takes it in fun. We are thrilled to have you talk about the fee schedule amendments, culinary water rating. I got the right person, right? Or is it Mike? What are you doing then, Dave?
He's the next
What
one.
damage? I thought I could do it
I
out
thought
of
we
memory.
could
Sorry.
just skip right over and I could just move on.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't know how far you want to go, Mayor, City Council with this, but I thought I might just do a little quick reflection. It's been over a year since we started looking into
Take one.
the water rate increase. It's not really something that I really wanted to do in my career, being here, but it's a necessity. Kind of what we've talked about before is what that'll go up. We're talking about 36 cents, 38 cents a day for the average family. So we will be going from 36.78 to 48.18. Some of the reasons why we've done that, because the cost of materials. And I don't think it's fair not to share, but that's just me. Anyway. Well,
All right, time throw.
I'll get it.
I wasn't.
Anyway, it's, the cost of pipe, 8-inch pipe's gone up $9 a foot. Just everything that we're buying is going up. It's kind of interesting to see that how the costs have gone up. I've been with the city next month on the 19th, 40 years. And it's incredible to think back to what we used to pay for the pipe back when I first started purchasing it to what we are right now. It's kind of insane to think about that. I feel like an old timer, I guess, probably the best way to summarize. summarize it up, but I think in the water rate increase, the thing that I would like our citizens to realize is, we did receive $1.5 million grant for a new reservoir. So that saved them some costs of things going up. We received a $75,000 meter grant. So there again, that's helped our system out. However, the $1.5 million, we're still trying to find out how we get that from the federal government, but that is something for the new storage tank. And I think it's nice. I think wherever we can, we try to save our citizens money and our water rates and that, one I was thinking of back there was, when Randy and I was working on the power bill, we were going to see the power bill trip over $100,000 a year. Realize we have many more facilities now. Last year we were around $65,000, so we were able to trim it down. And I think in the water department, and we try to make sure we maximize everything that we can. We're trying a few new things for the pickups. We're trying to keep the rates down, but our biggest thing is the cost of, the infrastructure, keeping up with the infrastructure. And I think it's important to note that we, when we do a road now, we try to make sure that it's got a new water line that's got, irrigation's on board with this. We got Weaver Basin working in the north. We've got Bill Creek in the south. It's saddened that there's a couple, private sector, the power company, the gas company, even though as much as we reach out to them, we can't get them to jump on board. I realize money's tight, what have you, but they understand that the cost of what they got to do if they rip up our brand new road. Example, up on 4th East, we had a person who I met with before we overlaid, trying to get them to put the sewer line in, and they wouldn't put the sewer line in. And now they're coming in saying, well, we want to put the sewer line in, but from the conversations I had, I think it's not fair what we're asking them to do to make our road whole again. But in reality, I owe that to our citizens to make sure that our roads stay the same. They could have jumped on board and saved a lot. I know 35% is a lot. We originally were still kind of asking between 3 to 5% a year, so that we don't have to have these big fights all the time. And that's maybe something that we would end up addressing next year, coming back and saying this is a real number. Maybe it might help city council to make that decision. I know that it's not in there tonight. So, example, a couple of years ago, we weren't able to do Nola Drive. Weaver Basin did their part. We had to patch the road. That's part of the increase, so that we can keep up with the other utilities that we had commitments with to move forward with these subdivisions. But there's a lot of things that's going on. There's all the water regs that's coming hitting us. We've got a new one that we're working on, USMR 5, and we also have the new lead and copper, where we, even though we don't have any leaded lines in our system, we still got to identify each service line going into each home of what material it is. So there's a lot of things that keep coming, that keep costing us time and money to keep up with. But with that, I'll just throw it out, the questions that you guys may have, so that we can maybe put this to rest. I know that we've had 4 work sessions on this, but there's always questions that come up.
Any further questions, Mike? Thank you, Mike, for the presentation. Then I guess we're looking for a motion if no questions on resolution.
This is a public hearing.
This public hearing.
No, this isn't a public hearing.
I'll just make 2 comments. First, from the previous public hearing tax, D. Hansen, I think, said it really well about our water system. He praised our water system. We all know how great it is, but he talked about how great our resources are, but we actually need to focus on the aging nature of the actual delivery system. And I could see Mike nodding his head in the back during that. And I think that's an important distinction. Great that we have a resource, but you have to maintain that delivery system as it ages out, of course. And we're in a tight spot now. And I know this resolution doesn't include future rate increases. So next year, in order to avoid these huge jumps, at least for my part, I'd like to see at least some kind of recognition, however inflation hits us, or how modest cost gains. I don't want to hit residents with some huge rate increase at some future time. If it's 1.5% or some just a nominal amount, I think we need to take those into consideration based off of market conditions. Thanks.
I agree with that totally.
Well, if I may just make one comment, if you remember what I asked was 3 to 5%, and then we would go 5 years and then balance it out. I really, to be honest with you, like the way that this is going. This will give us time to analyze that number and bring back a realistic number.
Yeah, and in the meantime, while we're trying to analyze that, I don't want to fall behind. I think the council's heard me too many times. I'd much rather be proactive than reactive. And I think this is the exception.
I think we'll have some pretty good numbers this year to come up with that. too.
And I know I can only live 3 days without water. So I don't know.
Good point.
Police and life safety are extremely important, but I think water actually, when it comes to that, who's higher needs, Maslow's higher needs.
Yeah,
Water
it's probably the highest.
Yeah.
If I might, I'd like to also just make a comment. As I looked at this from the perspective of if this is an affordable rate for our community. We talked a little bit about this in the work group, and I just want to bring it up where the public can hear it. I looked at how, if it was affordable or not, and what the state views as an affordable water rate is 1.5% of what's considered the modified adjusted gross income. That number was based on $61,800 per year. That does fall within this average rate of $48 a month. And I just want to state that's another thing that I looked at in trying to make sure that we were not overburdening our residents. It is not fun to have that kind of a water rate increase. And so I support also looking at just bumping it up a little bit each time as we can. But this is a fair rate. And I think it's really important because, as Spencer said, we can't live without water. So we've got to make sure these pipelines are upgraded in a timely manner.
Great. Any other comments? Thank you, everybody, for those. So we
I
need
just want to make a comment on what a great water department and employees we have. We've talked, like I said, we've talked about our police, but as you said, water is just as important. And I go to bed at night feeling very comfortable that my water is okay.
We got a good crew, got some good guys.
We've got some good guys. And
We also have some of the best tasting water there is.
we do, we do.
I'll make a motion if that's okay, unless we have board discussion.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-21, approving the new culinary water fee schedule.
Second.
Motion is second. I just want to clarify, we got 2022-21 and 2022-19. It is 21. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on it. Councilwoman Hurst, we'll start that.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 4-0. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Dave, you're going to talk to us about the baseball program.
I can do that too. I'm happy to make commitments for other programs. So.
Flood damage prevention. You've been waiting. We've
Yes,
been glad to
indeed.
get you up here.
Anxiously awaiting. I'm sure you guys have been as well. So I'll be really brief with the comments on this. This is the process that started back in 2014, where FEMA came through with the Division of Public Safety, and they did a map revision of all the flood maps through Davis County. We only had to map the west side because we felt strong with our engineering and our other programs that have been in place over the years. So we had them just look at the west side. With all of that as participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, FEMA also comes through and they look at your ordinances to make sure that you're in check with their programs. Ours has very minimal revisions to it because you may not be aware we have a really highly regarded flood protection program. Our ordinances have been talked about historically in my tenure here as being very, very sound and very protective of our citizens. So with that, this these revisions are in place. If you had a chance to look through those, it really is just a matter of verbiage. The 1 foot above is the main thing that's been changing. Our standards have always been that we require people to build to that point anyway, so this doesn't impact anything that we would do from allowing development anyway. So outside of that, I'd really just say if you guys have any questions about any of this.
2 quick questions. How much of our west side is within the floodplain with the revised mapping?
Essentially, I would say probably 75 to 80% and close to 100% of undeveloped area on the west side is going to be impacted by a special flood hazard area. Now, most of them didn't change their flood zones. We only had 3 properties that had any impact at all on the west side, and none of them are really even developable properties. And those property owners were contacted personally to make sure that they were clear and understanding of what we had, what was going on through this whole process, and there was no objection by it.
Okay. The second question is, this is kind of on the east side, but I know that Young Power Sports was having to do a little bit of map revision. Do we know if that's been completed and figured out?
So it has not been completed, not approved through FEMA. I know that there's been some back and forth that we've been involved with, them getting them some more information, but they still will be, their impact is financial for them. So there is still a lot of motivation for them to complete that process.
Okay. Thanks.
Further question for Dave? Everybody okay with within the ordinance, things that were, no questions as far as things that were redlined or struck out or anything?
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2022-14 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Problem, Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Thanks, Dave, appreciate it. Okay, we are down to personnel policies amendment. Lisa, would you like to address that for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We have before you a resolution to amend the personnel policies and procedures manual based upon a new state statute under SB 63. The state has imposed a requirement that I think we should support, but it's an imposed requirement on municipalities to provide 3 days of paid leave for any employee that has experienced a miscarriage or stillbirth. So we're proposing to add that benefit to our personnel policy. And it also applies to if the employee is a spouse, or if the employee's spouse has experienced a stillbirth or miscarriage, then that employee would qualify. And if you're separated or divorced, if you were married and the child would have been your biological child, the employee would also get benefit. And this state statute is effective May 4th, so I have put in there a retroactive date of May 4th, 2022. So in my opinion, if an employee had experienced one of those, we will be sending notice to them. Then in my opinion, they would be eligible for this benefit, even if we had not adopted this personnel policy yet, because the state law went into effect on that day. So again, I think it is a significant event for anyone experiencing this. I think as staff we're supportive of this and recommend approval.
So it's not just on this one, Lisa, but out of curiosity, did the states pass the bill that says, do we have to conform to any bill they pass like this? I mean, do we have to change our policy
Yes,
because the
this one's
state required it? Yeah. Okay.
On municipalities and I think schools, special service districts, and Board of Higher Education. State, county, municipal governments, and higher education.
Okay, further questions for Lisa? If not, we have a motion on this bereavement leave policy.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 22-19, enacting section 5.120 of the personnel policies, providing for bereavement leave for employees who experience miscarriage or stillbirth.
I'll second that.
Motion a second. Can I do all in favor? Resolution, right? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Here's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, fraud risk assessment. I know that those people such as Nate love to score high on these because I've been in a couple of other meetings and boards I serve on. You guys want to score well on these. So and we've done well. So tell us how we've done.
Yeah, we do, and we have done well. Again, this is a requirement that the Utah State Auditor gave us a couple of years back. They require that we fill this out, that the Chief Operating Officer, which is Brent, and the Chief Financial Officer, which is me, that we certify the results which we've done, and then we need to present it to the governing board, which is why we're here tonight. So to complete this, before you can see it, we have a list of questions that are assigned a certain value of points. These are all or nothing points, so there's no middle ground. You either get it or you don't. You can see that our total points, we earned 375 points out of a total of 395 points. The one item that we were not able to get points for was, does the entity have a formal internal audit function? Which we do not. It's very common in small cities that we just don't have the funds or the resources to have. So we didn't get that, but that still puts us in the very low risk level, which is excellent. So anyway, I can go into more detail if you'd like, but it's here before you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your work on it, and thank you, council, for getting all your responses in on what our job was. And thank you for the reminder a couple of weeks ago.
Thanks for reminding me. I was going to be my big thank you to the new council members for getting their training done. I appreciate it. It allowed us a higher score.
Does it kill you? We're not 395 out of 395. Are you okay?
Well,
No,
effectively, based off our size, we really did score 100%.
We did. We did. Yeah.
Well,
So-
and I mean, we don't have a formal internal audit function, but we still mitigate that risk by having multiple eyes look at things. And so while we don't qualify for the points, we're still performing that internal audit function, if you will.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks for your work on that and presenting that. Okay, we are at the summary action. We have a bond reduction, Silverthorne subdivision, a bid award, Summerhill Lane, a bid award, London Road, a bid award, drainage maintenance project. I think we can vote, since this is summary action, all these together, but is there questions on any of these? We got Kevin still here. We got Mike here. We got Lisa here. There's a couple big ones, so want to make sure you're good with them.
Kevin, just a quick question on all the bids. Are we still seeing a dearth of respondents on RFPs or requests for bids?
So in the bid package, it has the number of bidders for each project. I believe the water line, Summerhill Lane water line, I believe we have 3 bids. Cap Construction is on site with Symphony, so they had a little bit of an advantage and they were very low. The street projects, I believe we had 2 bids, post and asphalt. Excuse me, post asphalt and staker. So we're only seeing 2 to 3 bids.
Okay, so the answer to the question is yes, we're still not seeing very many bidders come out.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was talking to Dave.
That's okay. We're still seeing very few bidders come in the market.
Very few.
Yeah,
We're happy when we have 2 bids because then we know we can bring it before you folks and the council and the mayor and show that we have 2 competitive bids. We've had times where we've only had 1 bid and we've had to go out to rebid several times to get the second bidder. And so 2 to 3 is what we're seeing on average, which is kind of scary.
So I wanted to ask you,
Keep at it. Try and find anybody else.
definitely. I want to ask you on the big one, the London Road, what, 1.8, almost 1.9. Engineer estimate was 1.5. So since we're starting that next year, is that going to be an adjustment in our budget?
Yes, it will be an investment. Now, again, so we're using fund balance on this because generally we have 1.4 million available in what we collect in the transfer from the general fund. We did discuss possibility of removing one of the projects since each project was bid separately. Essentially, in this bid, we could remove, and our recommendation is not to remove any at this time, since we do have fund balance that could cover that 400,000. There'll be a request from Mark Marchant next year to increase the amount for slurry, I believe, which we'll discuss at that time too. So, but our recommendation is we'll need an amendment next year.
Yeah, maybe just a clarification on the engineer's estimates. Typically what we're doing for the engineer's estimate is we take the average of last year's bids and we add 10%. So for us to be another 20% or more above that, it kind of gives you an idea. We're not taking our engineer's estimate off the low bid from the previous year. We're taking the average and adding 10%. And so that gives you kind of an idea of
We're
the
30%
prices
over
that
last
we're
year.
seeing. A lot of it is concrete. There's a shortage on cement. And so those unit prices in particular are, some of them have doubled in 1 year. And so that's what we're up against. We think maybe it'll flatten off a little bit, but we don't see the prices coming down. We feel like if we have to do the London Road and the Cottonwood jobs this year. The 400 West overlay, we could delay and rebid next year, but we think the prices are just going to go up. So that's why our recommendation is that we award and move forward. Maybe next year we bid out fewer projects. That's maybe a strategy we talked about later on. But again, we think that the price for the 400 West overlay, if we were to rebid, would only go up because you only have 2 bidders, and that low bidder sees the second bid that's 20% above him, and so
He's gonna automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
it's a game. Yeah.
And when you are having, if you're only getting one bidder and you're having to rebid, that contractor also knows, oh, he's just rebidding this because he's got to get another number.
Yeah,
So maybe I can be
know both
competitive.
bids and
Yeah.
they know each other's unit prices. And so when one's at 1.8 and one's at 2.2, you go to rebid, the other one's probably going to be at 2.1.
Yep.
I mean, that's the game it's.
Did someone say that this is work being done next year? I thought this was substantially done at this point.
The utility projects are substantially completed and we bid out the road work separately. And so this is an award for the road reconstruction paving.
And when you say next year, you mean in 2 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. Next
Yeah.
fiscal year, sorry.
Yes, next issue. That's why Mayor was saying, okay, we're already looking at a budget amendment for the transportation fund.
Okay, if there's no further questions, on any of those four, we're looking for a motion to approve the summary action calendar.
We need to do these individually because of size, Lisa.
You can do them together, but.
You just need to state the
You have
amount.
to state the numbers. I can do that. I'll make a recommendation that we approve the bond reduction number 3, end of warranty for Silverthorne subdivision in the amount of $4,450. The project for Summerhill Lane subdivision be awarded to Cap Construction in the amount of $341,800. That we award to Post Asphalt for London Road and Cottonwood Drive street rebuilds, the amount of $1,863,760. And that we award for drainage maintenance projects for 2022 and 2023, award to Twin D the amount $98,219.
Second, I just amend, a friendly amendment to include on the London Road and Cottonwood Drive. It also includes the 400 West overlay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Motion, and a second for discussion.
Second that. Did he, did,
He seconded,
already
he
seconded.
seconded it with that
Yeah,
friendly amendment. Okay, the roll call vote, Councilman Meekum,
aye.
Aye.
I,
that motion passes 4-0. All right, minutes, the June 7th City Council. Is there anything that you saw in there that needs to be changed? Anyone? If not, I
Make
look
a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
I,
Opposed? All right, let's go to, the May financials are in there for you. We only have Nate report quarterly unless, so that would be at the end of this coming month. Unless you have any questions for him that on those May financials that you want to bring up with him. He's highlighted some areas. Hopefully we've had a chance to look at those, but no questions for him. You're good with the May financials that as presented?
I am.
Okay, let's go to council report. Councilwoman Hurst.
sure. The Parks Committee met last week. That is the first time in a while that they've had a quorum, and so they were able to meet. Some of the things that were discussed were ways that they can help Bryce with some of the fun new activities that he is working on, and they did a little bit of brainstorming on that. Some of the additions for this year are some new things with movie night, like you're having an entrepreneur night. Is that for kids, Bryce? Yeah, it's a kids entrepreneurial night where they can come and sell their wares ahead of time.
I
And then they,
attended the last one and it was amazing and a ton of people.
We have another one booked in August.
yeah, yes. So that one's on August 19th. They discussed some of that. They also talked about that one of the movie nights on July 29th will be a date night and potentially try to line up some food trucks or have some extra things there to support that evening. So that might be fun to attend with your significant others. Let's see. Other than that, I think that was most of it. My other assignment is the Dual Creek Irrigation Company. They had their annual shareholders meeting in May. And they discussed the rate increase, which is essentially to cover some fairly significant leaks this year, but also they are trying to build up a little bit of reserve fund to cover the upcoming required secondary meters. Every secondary system in Utah is going to be required to meter by 2030. We have probably the largest collectively secondary water system in the US. The state has set aside $250 million for those secondary meters. Dual Creek did get in on the first application process. They have requested $5 million. The project to meter every home in this, basically Dual Creek system is going to be about $7.1 million. So they will hopefully be able to get that grant. The grants request did come in under the 250 million. They came in about 200 million. So the Division of Water Resources will make a decision on that in August, and I'll update you at the appropriate time on whether or not they receive the 5 million. Water Resources will also provide a low interest rate loan for up to 2 million of that. It's just a little, I think it's 1.8 million. Dual Creek will be required to provide 15% of the loan amount, not the grants. So 15% of the essentially $2 million. They are working to get pipe. They're doing meter boxes now. Any new developments such as the Hive, Summerhill Lane are already installing the secondary meters as they go. Summerhill Lane wouldn't be it, and probably not the Hive, but anything else that is on Dual Creek. So And they did mention a couple of them, the lane, and so I apologize, I had that wrong. And then they are also are working with Weber Basin Water Conservancy District to buy meters in bulk so they can try and get them, because that's going to be the biggest issue. This money has to be spent in a certain time frame because it is ARPA funds, and so they are working on that. Does anyone have any questions?
Good report, thanks. I'd like to, in the future, somehow present on this so that people know about it, or residents know about it, that we do a council report. We rotate them, but are sometimes that things come up that are critical. And so I'd like to get it where another council member can report as well too. So can we do that right now? It's structured, or do we have to list?
The way it's labeled is council members report. We've left it open in the past, but when we didn't name a name, we didn't have council members reporting. So we've gone through the rotation, but it's still open for every council member to give a report. So if there's a timely item, please report during this time. It's not just restricted to the one. It's just encouraging one to at least give us a 3-month update.
Right.
Should I give a quick update, Mayor? Is that what you're asking on the rec center?
If you would like to, that's
I
totally up to
think
you.
it's important. So I think the council is well aware that the South Davis Rec Center has been looking at a bond for different facilities, upgrading their existing facility, a new facility that services the southern portion of our district in association with North Salt Lake City, and maybe some potential more ball fields. As part of that discussion, it's been a long ongoing discussion.
Wasn't that voted on last time? Wasn't that on the?
Not officially, but
I thought it was on with our cemetery.
They did not include it last.
No,
It wasn't
no.
on the ballot list here.
We got cut short on that one because of, in this meeting, we got cut short. The number of members had to leave to go to a fire district meeting. They did do the rec district's audited financial report, and it's Bountiful City that manages the rec center's finances. And to say the least, it was not cheery. It was a brutal report of ever expanding costs and not commensurate revenues. And so as a representative of our city, I've got big concerns about that, because I don't feel comfortable about, in layman's terms, I don't feel comfortable with a home expansion if you can't afford the home you're already in. And so Mayor was in a good meeting with us yesterday. It wasn't the whole district, it was with some other board members, but we went through a number of items. And for me, representing the city, I want to make sure, and the board has already nominated 3 individuals to look at any ways that they can right things. COVID really, really hurt the district, but it's been kind of a little bit years in the making. For some reason, I think they haven't increased or charged correct amounts for certain services. So they're looking at some of that to try and rein in costs and get revenues correct. In the meantime, for me, at least, I think representing the city, I think a bond proposal shouldn't just be about how much you're going to spend and what you're going to be doing in terms of expansion. So my recommendation in our next meeting is I think we need to see a revenue kind of a activities, services, revenue, business plan in association with that expansion. Because it's one thing to approve the cost, but you also have to see that you can actually afford it when it's all said and done. It's not just through funding your bond. So Brent, you're smiling and nodding your head. So it sounds like it's something you probably,
I'm aware of. and
okay.
Bryce and I are communicating through. You gotta come up to the mic.
Come up.
So he'll talk about it. I'm gonna have Bryce come up
And any
during
help
CMAP
from the,
report.
any
so
help from staff
talk
and
about it.
council as I represent the city, I welcome it. Please don't hesitate to reach out and offer ideas and suggestions. I want and need to know those things so that we can represent ourselves.
Well, I've asked Bryce just to report on our rec programs as of now during city manager report, so you can get an idea of what we're experiencing even at our level. So,
And again, it kind of, I've made comments that echo comments in this council meeting where if we have our local rec leagues using our fields and we're not charging a lot of money for them, that's one thing. But if we have a competitive soccer club renting our fields for the same cost and these coaches are making pretty large salaries, there, to me, that fee schedule should look a lot different. So anyways, that's where we're at right now.
I agree with that, and I think if they're gonna really look at that, they need to be able to fix what's broken before they.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my take on that is,
Yep.
if we can't get it fixed, maybe we need to wait a year before we go out for a bond so that we can.
I appreciated the board members that did meet, that were willing to meet, as well as the recreation director. And when I sent an email out to them, so, and Councilman Summer Hayes had some concern as well too, so.
Is there a chance that because of this financial shortfall, they're gonna send out a bill that says every city that's involved, you owe us $132,000 just to make up a number?
Who knows? That they have Kate Bradshaw, who's on the Bountiful City Council, is one of the members looking at it. Our board president, Todd Myers, who's actually a Centerville City resident, is looking at it. And then Mayor Romney from West Bountiful are looking into, first and foremost, how are we going to shore up costs and increase revenues? Because in every meeting that I'm in, it is, the rec center is booked solid, every room, every available space from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. essentially. And so I'm saying, well, if you're completely booked, then you're probably not charging the right rates for those services. And my concern is everybody talks, well, we just need more space because we're running out of space. And I'm saying, well, if you're out of space and you're losing money, you're just going to lose more money if you build more space.
Yeah.
So that's where,
Probably not real popular to hear, but
well, Bill,
with them.
Bill, I'm not. Yeah,
You
know, I think you got to kind of get my personality.
No,
already.
I understand. I just, it could probably put you on a hot seat, but. I
No,
mean,
no, I don't think so. I think there's other board members that share the same concern. There are other board members that really see it as a great amenity for the community, and I agree with that. But I can't be blinded by a great community amenity that isn't going to be solvent in X number of years.
I'm curious, okay? Because of age and my health plan. I have membership, my wife and I have membership card. And when we first got it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was kind of like glance at the card and it's done. If I understand my health plan correctly, they are willing to pay $10 a month for me to have access to that.
Yeah, you might get an offset for it.
So to the best of my knowledge, they don't have the information to charge my health plan $10 a month for me. So there's $250
right
a year for my wife and I,
multiplied by how many other
by
people
hundreds
Yeah.
of seniors. I don't know, but they glanced at the card and it was done. They didn't take any information. Take a copy of it anyway.
So they may be leaving money on the table where an insurer would be reimbursing the rec center back.
So you might mention that.
The other I think solution is, look, if you're having people outside of your district using the facilities, there are already not resident and non-resident fee schedules, but there may be even a different adjustment on your daily drop-in rates as well.
I think that's why it's good to have new blood on some of these committees.
I'm trying my best.
Yeah, and,
Thank you.
and we had him and two of our other, we have three of the state board members are residents, and we were discussing some of these things, other revenue lines, and that sort of, this is another good one here as well too, so. So thanks, Spencer, for being willing to report that. Okay, mayor report. What did you?
I guess one other thing in regard to that is they did a lousy job on managing that swimming pool retrofit. I don't know whose fault it was.
In terms of the closure.
Yeah, in terms of the closure, in terms of notices, in terms of following through with what they said, all of it was just abysmal. In my view. So I share that for what it's worth.
The last couple of weeks that we had the young groundbreaking, couple of you were able to come to that. They're going to be a nice addition. I like the positiveness that their company brings. Seems to be, I think that positiveness and cohesiveness will serve us well in getting this up and going. The Davis County Courthouse has been redone. It's a memorial courthouse, meaning there's not really a courtroom in it. That's why it's a memorial courthouse, but they preserved one of our old buildings, and it is neat, like the Councilman Summer has just said.
I didn't get up for the open house. Is there any other time somebody could get tours? Do you have any idea? Or just call?
I'm sure it could.
I would love to come look. I grew up
Yeah.
Farmington, so
Uh,
I remember going there as a kid.
We could get one of the commissioners or something. to take you around.
Not being brought in criminally.
No,
Going there otherwise.
Sure. I'd like to go through too.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it either.
No, okay, great.
Post it.
What?
You'll have to post
We'll
it.
have
if we
Yeah,
all
we'll
go
post
together.
You're already in enough trouble, Mayor.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to post that one. Yeah, it's 4 and 3. Okay, good one. Tingies, we've got our 4th of July parade in less than 2 weeks. We got our Grand Marshals, 3 generation of Tingies, and we're thrilled about it. It was a great suggestion from Councilman Meekin and a couple others. They've been a staple family in this community, and I'm hoping that last I checked, their numbers were going up. 55? 45.
Entrance.
Okay, so we can get 18 more if everybody in this room puts a floater and entry in, you know?
Did you talk to Mike?
I'm guessing we don't have quite 18. So we're looking a lot better. So we're excited about that. And you probably have seen the activity list of what's happening on the 4th.
Hey Bryce, I have a question. I had a text tonight asking me if Viewmont teams have entered stuff, if their teams are gonna be in the parade.
Cross team, I have the cheer, I have the band.
I'm working on the mountain bike team.
Yeah, so
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I
Save your phone
mentioned that.
call.
So good, thank you.
I'm trying, seeing how many people.
Don't try, do.
Uh,
I'm sorry, that's.
It might
Well,
just-
well,
than me.
well, if we can't get enough here, there may be some like join with Farmington,
Like my son, like,
Bountiful,
I'm
Woods Cross or something, and they'll ride into a big group, but I'd love to just have a few more.
Sure.
And that's all I have to report, but it got Bryce up here as well too, because it sounds like he might.
Lacrosse, dance company, marching band, football team.
Any questions for me?
Hi,
On
Jim.
any other questions for me on anything I didn't report or did? Have questions on? All right, city manager, Brent.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have about 13 items that I need to go through. I'm just kidding.
Are you about done yet?
Bryce, come on back if you would. So I've asked Bryce just to give you a brief overview of our rec programs and where we are. We've had some hiccups in some areas, some positives in others, and I just want to make sure, council, you're fully aware of kind of what's going on out there.
with our rec program?
Yeah, so we've kind of significantly rather than quantity, we've done more quality programs. So I know in the past coordinators have done a plethora of various camps, different names, different sizes, things like that. So we kind of narrowed it down to more of like a craft, a cooking, sports and fitness camp, and then some self-paced, do it your home on your own time camps. So right now we're looking at total for all the camps that we've done, about 460 kids participating in summer programs. I'd like to do a little more than that, but I think it's a rebound after COVID. I think people are trying to still like figure out who they are, what expenses they want to make, what they want to do on their own time, things like that. So I think there's some variables. I think next year will be a better forecast of if we're on track or if we really need to drastically change the scope of what we offer. So I think that's.
Isn't that pretty close to where we were pre-COVID?
I'm not sure. I don't have that statistics.
Well, we have had cancel a couple of classes, but we've been able to get the kids signed up for other classes that were being offered. So it's great. But if only 6 or 7 kids are signed up, it doesn't make fiscal sense to run that program. So the parents have been great to work with.
Yeah, so we've reached out to them through text and phone calls and things like that. And most people have been pretty appreciative of the communication that we offer. Like I talked to Brand, it's hard to cancel stuff because I want to keep my staff busy. I don't want to be canceling camps and then not have hours for them to provide if they're banking on this for summer jobs and things like that. So we're trying to keep the momentum going. We're averaging about 13 to 18 kids in our cooking and craft classes. And then sports and fitness camps, we're probably around 20 to 35 kids on some of the camps. Dodgeball camp happened today. We had 15 kids in that camp. And then the next session is about the same. So kind of a wide variety of things. We have an outdoor adventure camp that we're doing that's self-guided. So basically the kids, they do outdoor activities on their own. They can go to parks, they can do campouts on their own, they can do hiking, they get a water bottle for their adventure, and then they come to the city office, they get a sticker to put on the water bottle, and then they can.
It is pretty neat to see the kids come in and there's a basket of stickers and they get to pick their stickers. So it's good to see the parents bringing their kids into City Hall.
It's pretty fun. I mean, we've offered, like you said, a range of programs for affordable pricing. Where that program starts at $10 and the most expensive camp we're offering is $40. So with the exception of our outside partnerships, which is for Mountain West Gymnastics and the Raw Energies, those are a lot more because they're outside partnerships. We don't have any control over their pricing. So for the most part, the programs that we offer were between 10 and $40. So we're covering basically labor costs in that respect. So I have a part-time summer coordinator who's kind of running the day-to-day, and then I'm kind of filling in on the back end to support her in what she has to do, doing the communication side of things. She handles classes. It's Anna Fillmore, so she's handling classes and things like that. So the tennis program is down quite a bit. Only about 25 kids in the 7 sessions that we've offered. So
Imagine what the pickleball program would be like.
apparently, yes, I didn't know we could make that much money off of pickleball. That's a new one to me. So yeah, I mean, we'll definitely go down that road. I know.
Too soon?
I know, like,
$667,000.
like the pickleball mecca of the Utah is St. George, and I know that even in their good year, they're banking $300,000 in revenue in their programs that cover their full-time staff and their expenses. So yeah, $600,000 is music to my ears. So we'll figure that number out when it comes. So anything else?
That's all. That's all.
That's all I wanted to say. I'd love to have a conversation about South Davis Rec with you, and I'd love to know kind of, because I hear it from the staff side, because I'm friends with a lot of staff. I'd love to know kind of the process. So if I'm the director, I'm the programmer, and I want to create a new program, what's that process? Like, does it have to go through because the way it gets pictured to me is it has to go to the board, it has to go through this and this.
I
and
don't
this.
even know right now.
So
I'm so new at it that.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down with you and look at it and whatnot.
Well, and that's what Mayor and I are actually talking after our meeting is you really need to identify your programs, and they've kind of started to do that, but I don't think they're allocating the overall operational cost of the entire facility to each, an ice rink program, the leisure pool versus the competitive pool, racquetball courts.
Well, like the ice
Whatever.
program is subbed out, like their hockey program is run through another party and, all these different things. So.
So we were
curious
saying,
to see.
you really gotta,
But they're shorthanded. I know they've got a lot of turnover in their lower level coordinator jobs. So yeah, I know they're shorthanded. We're starting to already feel that because they're reaching out to us and saying, hey, would you take on softball? We're not going to offer softball anymore. If there's anything else. So I think we're starting to see some give back to the cities on certain things. We don't want to take on softball. We're going to kick it back to Farmington or Kaysville, but I think we're starting to see some of that. Is this a priority for me to offer it? So we're starting to feel it a little bit. So any other questions? That's easy. Get Brian home. He's got to get up at 5.
I do have to get up at 5. Two other items. Chief did discuss the conditional offer, which is fantastic. This officer is highly qualified, probably one of the best candidates we've seen in a long time. So we're pretty excited about that.
Young, newly.
Relatively
experienced
new,
officer
has some
or-
experience and
Or. experience.
3 years with the UHP. So,
Oh, that's
so
great.
experience. So, yeah. And then the last item to get your thoughts on is the canceling potentially the July 5th meeting. As of right now, we have no items for that meeting. Any strong opposition to that? We don't have any items at this time. Just people might be traveling that day. Not me, but people.
I don't see any reason not to.
So we tried to get,
We don't have any.
we'll have it on today, so we took care of some of that today that could have been delayed, but we can delay until the next meeting. As of right now, but we'll let you know if anything critical comes up,
Okay.
then we might hold it.
Sounds good.
Tonight, I think counts for three meetings. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Brad. What happened to the other 11 items?
No, I don't have that.
Just joking.
Do we have a
Trying
closed
to mess
session?
back.
Before I close, I want to thank every employee that was here tonight and every council member and every resident that was here and still continues to be here. I wouldn't want to do this on my own. So thank you for the support and thanks for what each and every one you do. I really appreciate
I
it.
have a question to ask. Who stacks the crowd?
I have no idea.
I asked people to come. I asked,
Did you give them a script?
did I give them the script? I said, I asked people to come and I said, if you feel the same way as I do, here's what you might want to say. But nobody actually said anything that I said. So it's interesting. Everybody came up with their own.
When we went
ideas.
through our experience 4 years ago, we had
19 people.
19 people, 18 negatives and 1 positive.
Well,
It
and
was, tonight was amazing.
getting the newsletter out online.
I think if you go to
in
Facebook
person
too, I
and-
mean, Gina and I reached out on the
Some of the
Centerville
social
Friends and
media.
social media and said, hey, this is
Put
what's going on in
several-
the city. Give us your thoughts. Here's some of the rationale. We tried to be engaged with the community up front, so they knew that much of the increase was it's police and fire for the most part. So. But
There was miscommunication about that on Facebook because it said that, I don't think you clarified in your comment, Gina, that the not public comment was for the work session, not for this. And it made it sound like there was no public comment.
But that was only in reference to the work session topics.
I know.
I did clearly state in anything on the property tax increase that the public hearing was open until the 21st. So that I would probably respectfully just say, I disagree that I feel like I was only commenting on things that were in the work
and
session.
Bill, the city, I mean, Bryce put out a lot of on social media too, which was helpful as well. I mean, the truth in taxation, little bit of that as well. I posted actually the same video that Nate showed. I had posted that for the public, so at least they understood that there's this kind of seesaw effect of tax rates versus nominal tax amounts and
Right.
home values, etc. So I think that helped a lot for people to be engaged.
Thanks, everyone. It's after 11. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All right. Council adjourned. Thank you.
You have something